Chapter 441. Hitting the Midstage of Rotary Elixir. The ninth ancient steel must be returned to the people of the barbaric wilderness continent. Yichen's slowly uttered words resounded throughout the venue, making all the warriors around the 18 ancient steels in the 5 elements divine temple tremble. Everyone heard that Yichen was directly asking Elder Minghua for the ninth ancient steel. Although previously Elder Minghua had been extremely polite to the youth Yichen, and might even do him the favor of directly returning the ninth ancient steel to the warriors of the barbaric wilderness continent. But there is a stark difference between the Purple Dawn continent returning the ninth ancient steel and the barbaric wilderness continent demanding it. The implication in Yichen's words was clear. He intended to retrieve the ninth ancient steel, regardless of whether the Purple Dawn continent would return it or not. He was set on taking it back, not waiting to see if Elder Minghua felt like returning it. To dare to speak so directly in front of a late-stage heavenly saint, one of the peak powers, naturally caused a great stir among the other warriors. Moreover, they were shaken by the fact that Yichen, this young lad, was referring to Elder Minghua as simply Minghua. He was but a young boy in the early stages of core rotation, and yet he dared to address a late-stage heavenly saint, a mighty being of an entire continent, as his equal. Clearly, he was treating himself as Elder Minghua's peer. This left the crowd of warriors incredibly astonished. Meanwhile, the warriors of the barbaric wilderness continent had tears welling up upon hearing Yichen's words. They had been unsure of Yichen's thoughts since he had remained silent, but who could have known that as soon as he spoke, he would be demanding the return of the ninth ancient steel for the barbaric wilderness continent, with no care whether Elder Minghua agreed or not. Such a domineering stance, of course, swept away the perpetual gloom from the hearts of the barbaric wilderness warriors, leaving them feeling exultant. Even the earlier supportive intervention of Elder Minghua reprimanding the warriors of the Purple Dawn continent hadn't brought them such satisfaction. Yichen was one of their own from the barbaric wilderness continent. When a person from the barbaric wilderness continent spoke up, it had a completely different impact than when Elder Minghua from the Purple Dawn continent did. Yichen was asserting their dignity. However, the warriors of the barbaric wilderness continent now looked worriedly towards Elder Minghua. They did not understand why Elder Minghua had treated Yichen with such courtesy, but as Elder Minghua was a late-stage heavenly saint power, they feared that Yichen's assertive demeanor may provoke his anger. What these barbaric wilderness warriors didn't expect was that Elder Minghua was far from angry. He was inwardly smiling wryly. Elder Minghua did not expect that on matters related to the barbaric wilderness continent, Yichen would show such sharpness for the first time in front of him, leaving him somewhat at a loss. However, as a hero who had witnessed countless changes, Elder Minghua's facial muscles twitched unnaturally for a moment after Yichen spoke, and then he regained his composure. Elder Minghua cheerfully responded to Yichen. As for returning it, there's no need for Minghua to say, the ninth ancient steel naturally should be returned to the barbaric wilderness continent. Originally, since Minghua mentioned settling the matter, I shouldn't punish those disciples who vied for the ninth ancient steel, but they have indeed broken the rules. Let's penalize them by having them leave this place, so they don't need to comprehend the laws of the 5 grand cosmic voids here. This statement from Elder Minghua immediately sparked a flurry of discussions beneath the 18 ancient steels. Many had wanted to see if Elder Minghua, for the sake of the Purple Dawn continent's face, would get furious and have a head-on confrontation with Yichen after the direct demand for the ninth ancient steel. Unexpectedly, Elder Minghua agreed to Yichen's request and continued to treat him with utmost politeness, not only handing over the ninth ancient steel to the barbaric wilderness continent, but also specifically punishing those Purple Dawn continent disciples who fought for it. Under these circumstances, everyone understood that there must be a reason Elder Minghua had always been so courteous to the youth Yichen, and it was even possible that Elder Minghua truly feared Yichen. Otherwise, it would not be possible to disregard the dignity of a top expert from the heavenly saint. It seems that this youth is quite extraordinary, or else Minghua would definitely not treat him this way. Below the 10th ancient steel, a late-stage heavenly saint existence among the warriors of the heavenly vast continent murmured in his heart. Below the 8th ancient steel, The leading late-stage heavenly saint existence from the Crimson Source continent also looked towards Yi-chan and muttered to himself, I originally thought that without Yuan Li participating, the barbaric wilderness continent would be much weaker among the 33 continents. However, I didn't expect the barbaric wilderness continent to produce such an exceptional youth. It seems it's time to forge a good relationship with this youth. These peak figures and late-stage heavenly saint experts from various continents were all martial artists with exceptional insight, naturally able to infer the hidden meaning behind Elder Minghua's utmost courtesy towards Yi-chan. Eventually, when Yi-chan returned to sit at the base of the 9th ancient stele with the warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent, many formidable warriors from the other ancient steles approached Yi-chan for a chat and invited him to comprehend the inscriptions on the steles they occupied. Even Elder Minghua transmitted a few messages to the warriors of the Purple Dawn continent, before continuing to discuss the matters of the 18 ancient steles with Yi-chan by his side. Having reclaimed the 9th ancient stele and seeing Elder Minghua's extreme politeness, the slight anger in Yi-chan's heart due to the oppression faced by the warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent finally dissipated. He greeted the formidable warriors from the other ancient steles with a smile, didn't refuse their invitations, and indeed went to each of the great ancient steles to observe. Finally, Yi-chan settled back into his seated position below the 9th ancient stele. The 9th ancient stele had been reclaimed, and the disciples from the Purple Dawn continent had been punished. Yi-chan, of course, would not dwell on this matter. The only lesson he took from this incident was that a true powerhouse must always strive to become stronger. If it hadn't been for his absolute power to slay 10 phantom beasts and save Elder Minghua, making Elder Minghua recognize his might, a prominent figure like Elder Minghua from a continent wouldn't have been so polite to him. If he hadn't instilled fear into Minghua, there would be no talk of reclaiming the 9th ancient stele for the barbaric wilderness continent. Perhaps the warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent would still be forced to cultivate below the 14th ancient stele. Only when one is powerful enough can they earn the respect of others, prevent others from bullying them, and turn their reverence into utmost politeness. The strength that made Elder Minghua fear me is not my true strength. Neither the true God talisman nor Bing Shi are my own. Reliance on external power can only last so long. Only when one is truly strong can they always have absolute confidence. Yi-chan also thought of the life-threatening battles he had faced in the forbidden ancient lands. The 18 ancient steles. I have finally come to the base of the 18th ancient stele in the Five Elements Divine Temple. Right here, I will completely attempt to break through to the mid-stage or even late stage of Spinning Dan, and take my strength to the next level. With countless thoughts crowding his mind to the brim and the critical moment to break through to the mid-stage of Spinning Dan upon him, Yi-chan, who had already obtained numerous cultivation treasures, was now finally seated within the Five Elements Divine Temple and would not miss this most crucial time for cultivation. Whiz! 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 He was not afraid of what others might think. He directly had Bing Shiba, Bing Shurgyo, and Bing Shi emerge from the Ice Snow Jade Pendant to stand guard below the 9th ancient stele for the warriors of the barbaric wilderness continent. After all, this was the Five Elements Divine Temple, and who knew who else might come. Yi-chan did not want his cultivation to be disturbed, nor did he wish for the disciples of the barbaric wilderness continent to be bullied again. When the three late-stage heavenly saint figures, Bing Shiba, Bing Shurgyo, and Bing Shi flew out from the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, even though the three war beasts assumed a size similar to that of Yi-chan, the earth-shattering aura they emitted still shocked all the warriors present to an unbelievable extent. Especially the aura of Bing Shi, which even surpassed that of Elder Minghua. It immediately caused all the late-stage heavenly saint experts present to tremble in awe. Could it be because of this powerful war beast that Minghua was so fearful of Yi-chan? Many people pondered, but Yi-chan no longer cared about these people's thoughts. The pressing matter at hand was to focus on cultivation. He transmitted a few messages to the warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent and the skyscraper palace master before sitting down below the 9th ancient stele and deeply immersing himself in the breakthrough to the mid-stage of Spinning Dan. And the warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent, perhaps motivated by the incident involving the 9th ancient stele, adjusted their mindsets after Yi-chan began his intense cultivation. They cast aside all distractions and quietly began to cultivate while seated below the ninth ancient stele. And Bing Shiba, Bing Shurjo, and Bing Shi stood as guards beside Yi Chun, not moving a step as they protected his cultivation. Chapter 442, Law's Backpour. Beneath the ninth ancient stele, Yi Chun closed his eyes and entered into a true state of cultivation. Within his chi-si, the power of the 5 great heavenly void laws that he had cultivated over a period of time was now furiously surging atop the 372 5 apertures rotating pills. In Yi Chen's mind, the insights into the 5 great heavenly void laws observed from the 18 ancient steles were occasionally flashing through his brain like lightning, while at other times, they would pause, bringing forth the characters and inscriptions of the steles. The 18 ancient steles, those martial artists had invited me, and I have observed them all. The 9th and 10th ancient steles offer the most comprehensive explanations of the 5 great heavenly void laws. Yet the insights on the other steles also carry their weight in reason. Yi Chun was slowly organizing these insights into the 5 great heavenly void laws. Amidst a multitude of insights, Yi Chun needed to find those that suited him, melding them with his own experiences rather than casually cultivating any particular method of insight. Otherwise, the loss would outweigh the gain. After all, what best suits oneself is the best there is. The 5 great heavenly void laws, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, are rumored to be the sources of the 5 elements of these 33 continents. All things from the 33 continents arise from the transformation of these 5 elements. To comprehend the 5 great heavenly void laws, according to one insight on the 9th ancient stele, there is a method that starts with separating and understanding each metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. While on the 10th ancient stele it is said that, in essence, the 5 great heavenly void sources have their distinctions but share commonalities. Thus they can combine to form all things or separate into the 5 elements. Another theory on the 4th ancient stele mentions how many are afraid of the mutual repulsion between the 5 great heavenly void laws and thus focus on cultivating one heavenly void law to great perfection first. Then they find it much more difficult to bring the other heavenly void laws to great perfection later on. Yi Chun also recalled what he witnessed in the 5 elements divine temple within the second mountain, the manifestation of the sources of the 5 great heavenly void laws. He remembered the peculiar gases passed down from the upper realm's minor spirit realm, transforming into the mysterious variations of the 5 great heavenly void laws. Ultimately, all insights, thoughts, and understandings transformed into Yi Chen's enlightenment. If one intends to comprehend each of the 5 great heavenly void laws to the level of great perfection, there is a very difficult path to take. Yet it is the one that holds the most promise of mastering all 5 great heavenly void laws to great perfection. This path involves comprehending and fusing each law from minor accomplishment to great perfection, one phase at a time. Only after thoroughly integrating and permeating each phase would one proceed to the next phase of law comprehension. To achieve minor accomplishment, one must comprehend each of the 5 great heavenly void laws to that level simultaneously. They must also be capable of fusing and utilizing them together before attempting to charge towards great accomplishment. For great accomplishment, all must be comprehended to that level, for without each achieving great accomplishment, it is absolutely impossible to aim for great perfection. Finally, when the metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, all 5 great heavenly void laws, are comprehended to great accomplishment and can be fused in application, that is when they will collectively charge towards great perfection of all the 5 great heavenly void laws. Although this approach is much slower and more difficult than immediately comprehending a single heavenly void law to great perfection, advancing all 5 great heavenly void laws together allows for a deeper understanding of all laws, preventing the scenario where one law is strong and another is weak. Even though this method is extremely difficult, so much so that few on the 33 continents can accomplish it, and many who cultivate to void sky true God status hadn't achieved it in the heavenly saint realm, I must cultivate this way. Of course, Yi Chun would not rush to cultivate a single heavenly void law to great perfection and directly enter the heavenly saint realm, before supplementing the other heavenly void laws. He had heard from many powerful late-stage heavenly saints in the forbidden ancient lands that such an approach made it more difficult to comprehend the other heavenly void laws. Moreover, simultaneously cultivating the 5 great heavenly void laws to great perfection was a boon for a void sky true god facing the 9 tribulations later on. Despite the difficulty of cultivation, Yi Chun would not give up this path. The way is hard, but laying a solid foundation is stronger than blindly aiming high in one's realm. Yi Chun wanted to lay the most solid foundation possible while in the rotating pill realm. Now with combat abilities at the level of Heavenly Saint, Yi Chun was certainly not in a hurry to break through to the Heavenly Saint realm and delay his simultaneous cultivation of the 5 great heavenly void laws. Besides, I practice the 5 great divine arts, which naturally give me a better sensitivity to the 5 great heavenly void laws than others. Additionally, the void sky quintessence fruit I've recently obtained possesses marvelous uses for harmonizing the 5 great heavenly void laws, aiding me in balancing the progress of all 5 laws. Thus, that most difficult and also most powerful path of comprehending the 5 great heavenly void laws, I should be all the more committed to this journey. Having determined the path he wished to take, Yi Chun immediately began comprehending the 5 great heavenly void laws, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, all at the same time. Upon entering the early stage of the rotating pill realm, Yi Chun's 5 great heavenly void laws were at a basic level, and only by raising the basic level to minor accomplishment could he enter the middle stage of the rotating pill realm. To step into the latter stage of the rotating pill realm, he had to break through from minor accomplishment to great accomplishment. Finally, by breaking through from great accomplishment to great perfection, one could achieve the heavenly saint realm. Many focus solely on cultivating 1 or 2 of the 5 great heavenly void laws to great accomplishment before directly charging towards great perfection and stepping into the heavenly saint realm. But Yi Chun intended to advance the 5 great heavenly void laws evenly, collectively pushing towards great perfection. His first step into the middle stage of the rotating pill realm involved simultaneously cultivating all 5 great heavenly void laws to minor accomplishment. This concept might sound simple, but the cultivation process is indeed the most difficult of all in the rotating pill realm. After all, where many cultivate just 1, Yi Chun was to cultivate 5 at the same time. Yet Yi Chun showed not a hint of timidity. As he mentally comprehended those 5 great heavenly void laws, all 5 great divine arts emerged atop his 372 5 apertures rotating pills, confirming his thoughts. At the same time, Yi Chun consumed 3 void sky quintessence fruits that he'd obtained from the forbidden ancient lands, allowing the power of these fruits to enter his chi-si and ultimately harmonize with the power of his rotating pill laws. The rate at which such comprehension occurred was extremely slow, and Yi Chun, who was sitting cross-legged under the 9th ancient stele, remained motionless even after more than a dozen days had passed. However, what no one knew was that within Yi Chun's chi-si, the power of the 5 great heavenly void laws had begun to undergo a subtle and strange transformation. The 5 great heavenly void laws, at their foundation, are simply the direct use of the elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Only after pondering these ancient stele inscriptions did I realize that the powers of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth have many levels. For instance, when comprehending the power of fire at the basic level, it is merely destructive burning power, but to reach the minor accomplishment level of comprehension, even for burning, one must grasp a deeper layer and understand every flicker of flame with greater depth. Destructive burning power is not only capable of killing, but with a deeper understanding of these forces, it can even make burning capable of saving lives. Flames used to save people? Yes, the fire element law at the minor accomplishment level can indeed achieve this. As Yi Chun continued his contemplation, it was as if he saw a great swath of flames striking a martial artist whose energy meridians were blocked, directly burning through those meridians, allowing heaven and earth true chi to flow straight into the martial artist's meridians. This level of control over the fire element law represented a further advancement. As one's grasp of the fire element law deepened, not to mention saving lives, killing would become even more formidable. The scene of contemplation in his mind changed, and the endless flames transformed into countless sparks, each with its own unique way of burning and killing. Yi Chun's contemplation wasn't limited to just the fire element law. He was furiously pondering the laws of metal, wood, water, and earth as well. Having utilized the 5 great divine arts, He had already fought many people, used the powers of the 5 great divine arts and the elemental laws of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth countless times, even against beings as powerful as those in the heavenly saint realm and opponents like the three-eyed skeletons of the void sky true god realm. Yi Chun had already gained a profound mastery over these powers, having reached the stage where a quantitative change could lead to a qualitative transformation, and was but a hair's breadth away from another metamorphosis of the 5 great heavenly void laws powers. After exactly 21 days of sitting cross-legged under the 9th ancient steel, on that day, Yi Chun had yet to open his eyes, but the area of the 5 elements divine temple where he was seated had begun to change. The greatest change was that within the 5 elements divine temple, awe-inspiring clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws began to emerge, wildly converging at the temple's peak. Clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws appearing. This indicates that someone is about to break through. As the clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws began to gather above the 5 elements divine temple, many martial artists seated at the feet of the 18 ancient steels, not currently in the state of cultivation, noticed the anomaly. Seeing the light from all 5 types of heavenly void laws, those of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, contained within the wildly converging clouds above the 5 elements divine temple, these martial artists were even more astonished. How can there be a convergence of all 5 heavenly void laws at once? Could it be that someone's breakthrough propelled all 5 heavenly void laws to the next level simultaneously? What surprised the martial artists the most was the duration over which these clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws were gathering. The reason why countless strong individuals came to comprehend the 5 great heavenly void laws at the 5 elements divine temple, leaving behind their insights on the 18 ancient steels, was because of the rich concentration of these laws, all hidden within the area of the 5 elements divine temple. Once a breakthrough occurred, one could directly harness the power of these heavenly void laws from this place and infuse it into one's body. Typically, advancing from the early stages of the rotating pill realm to the mid-stage, it would take half an hour for the clouds required for breakthrough to gather at the temple's peak. Breaking through from the mid-stage to the later stage of the rotating pill realm, the clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws needed would take 3 hours to accumulate enough. To break through from the later stage of the rotating pill realm to the heavenly saint realm, the largest amount of clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws ever needed would gather in just 1 day's time. Even for heavenly saint realm warriors who needed to make up for the heavenly void laws they had not cultivated to great perfection, typically it would only take 1 day to gather the breakthrough clouds. However, when these martial artists observed the clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws beginning to converge above the 5 elements divine temple, they found that these clouds took a whole 3 days to gather and still weren't finished. The entire area of the 5 elements divine temple, spanning tens of thousands of zhang, was now enveloped by thousands of zhang shrouded in these clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws. Such an extraordinary scene naturally astonished the martial artists cultivating under the 18 ancient steels. The power of all 5 heavenly void laws coming together is something I've never witnessed, nor have I ever seen someone breaking through all 5 great heavenly void laws at the same time. I've never encountered a situation where it takes 3 days to gather the clouds needed for a breakthrough. Who is it that's breaking through with such an impressive display? If all these clouds of laws are infused into the body, how many times stronger would his 5 great heavenly void laws powers become? As the martial artists marveled, it took 4.5 days for the clouds of the 5 great heavenly void laws to completely gather above the 5 elements divine temple. At this point, everyone turned their attention to the terrifyingly vast cloud, which had reached a staggering 8,000 zhang in diameter. They all wanted to see where this tremendous cloud would drift and who was breaking through, causing these clouds to gather. At that moment, at the center of the vast cloud, it began to slowly move. It moved from the 18th ancient steel to the 17th, then to the 16th. Finally, the central point of the tremendous 8,000 zhang cloud stopped right above the 9th ancient steel. It halted over the space above Yi Chen's head. It's Yi Chun. It's that young man who made even the esteemed ancestor Minghua act so courteously. Is he about to break through? Just as all the martial artists realized that Yi Chun was the one behind the formidable gathering of clouds, The clouds in the sky directly formed a funnel shape, with the tip of the funnel carrying the massive quantity of clouds down towards the top of Yi Chen's head, as he sat cross-legged directly below the ninth ancient stele. Chapter 443 Anomaly of the Treasure Cave Key. At the moment the tip of the law essence clouds touched the space above Yi Chen's head, he, who was seated in meditation, suddenly opened his eyes. With a pinch of his hand, a rotating pill instantly emerged from the sea of qi within him, appearing above his head. This rotating pill was none other than the 5 apertures rotating pill that Yi Chen had cultivated when he first stepped into the rotating pill realm. As soon as the 5 apertures rotating pill appeared above his head, the vast amount of law essence clouds, as if finding an outlet, crazily poured into the 5 apertures rotating pill. Once the law essence clouds poured into the 5 apertures rotating pill, the 5 divine pill law patterns on it began to ripple in circles, and as time passed, even the 5 apertures rotating pill itself began to swell and expand. However, looking into Yi Chen's sea of qi, one would be shocked to find. Inside Yi Chen's sea of qi, there were another 371 5 apertures rotating pills, which flew into the void of the sea of qi. Like the rotating pill above Yi Chen's head, they too had the divine pill law patterns rippling with light, and the pills themselves were also swelling and expanding. These 372 5 apertures rotating pills of Yi Chen were all identical rotating pills cultivated by practicing the Taiyuan divine pill. They were undergoing identical transformations even as he was breaking through his realm. Seeing the vast law essence clouds pouring into the 5 apertures rotating pill above Yi Chen's head, many martial artists meditating beneath the 18 ancient steles couldn't help but gather around Yi Chen. The sight of such a celestial breakthrough shocked these martial artists. They could not have imagined that the breakthrough of a junior martial artist in the early stages of the rotating pill realm could attract such a massive scale of 5 great heavens law essence clouds. If not for Bing Shi, Bing Shiba, and Bing Shurja blocking, this kind of phenomenon might even shock the martial artists enough to directly disturb Yi Chen, who was in the middle of his breakthrough. Thankfully, there were 3 icebound guardians upholding the law. During Yi Chen's breakthrough, the 3 icebound guardians had already prevented anyone from approaching within a 5-yard radius of Yi Chen's body. All the startled martial artists stood beyond the 5-yard radius of Yi Chen's body, watching his incredible breakthrough unfold, pouring in. The vast 5 great heavens breakthrough clouds poured into Yi Chen's 5 apertures rotating pill. Transformation. The 1 rotating pill above Yi Chen's head, along with the 371 inside him, and even the 5 divine pill law patterns on them, were all undergoing transformation. This state lasted for a full 2 days. After practicing for more than 27 days under the 9th ancient stele, the vast law essence clouds that spanned 8,000 zhang in radius had finally all been absorbed into Yi Chen's rotating pill. The moment all the law essence clouds were completely absorbed, the 5 apertures rotating pill above Yi Chen's head, which had expanded to twice its original size, flashed rapidly 3 times before once again thunderously flying back into Yi Chen's sea of qi. Law essence absorbed. Rotating pill triple flash. This was unmistakably the sign of advancing to the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm. Mid-stage of the rotating pill realm. Since breaking through to the rotating pill realm at the sword-fighting conference in Immeasurable Mountain, after countless days of cultivation, and even with the accumulation of 3 years' worth of time in the sub-temple of the Icebound Temple, Yi Chen had finally stepped firmly into the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm at the 3rd mountain of the 5 Elements Mountain. 5 days later, a figure was crossing the void rift between the 3rd and 4th mountain, heading deeper into the 4th mountain. This figure was none other than Yi Chen, who had just broken through to the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm 5 days ago. In flight, Yi Chen looked into the ice snow jade pendant that housed the narrow iron box containing the treasure cave key, and sighed. Originally, I was still considering whether to go to the Divine Heritage Cave in the 4th and 5th mountains. Now I have no choice but to go. 5 days ago, when Yi Chen broke through to the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm, a tremendous disturbance shook the ground beneath the 18 ancient steles as he emerged from his breakthrough state. Countless martial artists, including the skyscraper palace master Elder Minghua, and the leading late-stage heavenly saint of the Jumong continent, All flocked to congratulate Yichun on his successful breakthrough and inquired how he could absorb such an immense amount of void laws. Of course, Yichun would not reveal the matter of the Taiyuan divine pill he had been cultivating. He merely stated that his breakthrough was related to the cultivation method and divine techniques he practiced. When it came to divine techniques, the powerful beings nodded in shock and understanding. Afterward, Yichun continued to meditate under the 9th ancient stele. According to his plan, although he had cultivated to the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm, it was far from sufficient. He, of course, wanted to seize the rare opportunity to comprehend at the 5 elements divine temple and advance towards the late stage of the rotating pill realm. To advance from the mid-stage to the late stage of the rotating pill realm, one has to elevate the comprehension of the 5 major void laws from minor to major accomplishment. This process was naturally more difficult and time-consuming than breaking through from the early to the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm. In the past few days, Yichun had been smoothly absorbing and comprehending, but on the 3rd day after his breakthrough to the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm, he suddenly felt a sense of restlessness in his mind and spirit. No matter how he tried to meditate and comprehend, he could not attain any realization. This restlessness made it impossible for Yichun to continue his cultivation. And the source of this condition was undoubtedly related to the treasure cave key that Yichun kept inside the ice snow jade pendant. Yichun discovered that his restlessness coincided with the inexplicable trembling of the treasure cave key, encased in the long and narrow iron box. When Yichun submerged his divine consciousness into the mysterious divine pattern carved on the treasure cave key, he suddenly discovered the reason for the key's trembling. It was the fabled divine heritage cave, rumored to hold countless divine artifacts and wondrous treasures, opening once every 100 years, had finally opened again. Yichun had not expected that the opening of the divine heritage cave would cause such a commotion by the treasure cave key, let alone disrupt his cultivation so significantly. Even though it might be sensible to discard the treasure cave key and continue cultivating, Yichun found it hard to let go. Ultimately, after pondering for a while, Yichun made a decision to take a look at the divine heritage cave. With his recent successful breakthrough, along with 9 icebound guardians and 2 true god talismans in his possession, and having obtained the defensive divine artifact, the purple mist true garment from Aole, Yichun had some confidence in venturing into the divine heritage vault. After informing the skyscraper palace master that he had matters to attend to and exchanging a few words with the other powerful beings, Yichun led the 9 icebound guardians away from the 5 elements divine temple of the 3rd mountain, following the guidance of the treasure cave key, and headed towards the divine heritage cave, located between the 4th and 5th mountains. As Yichun flew across the void rift between the 3rd and 4th mountains, heading deeper into the 4th mountain, at a certain location on the summit of the 4th mountain, Jin Liang, the holy son of the Shenjin continent, stood alone at the mountain peak. The 2 other holy sons who had been following Jin Liang were nowhere to be seen and were not by his side. Atop the mountain summit, Jin Liang gazed in the direction of the void rift between the 4th and 5th mountains, while touching a long, narrow iron box on his body. The item within this iron box turned out to also be a treasure cave key. The day for the divine heritage cave to open has finally arrived. In a few more days, it will be time to formally venture into the vault, he mused. After 33 cycles, this time, after 3,300 years, the divine heritage cave has eventually rotated to the moment when the deepest, ice-fire divine vault opens. I must not miss this opportunity, as Jin Liang thought to himself. His eyes shone with an uncontrollable excitement and an inexplicable longing. As Jin Liang's eyes sparkled with anticipation, 2 sinister voices suddenly emerged. Liang, is that thing you mentioned truly inside this divine heritage cave? We've expended much effort descending to this realm and fully recovering. If there are no significant gains, it could delay our battle with the Baiming clan's Qingyuan true god. Hearing these 2 voices, Jin Liang's eyes flashed with a flicker of light, and he said respectfully towards the source of the voices, Elders, the information I got is from a secret text of the sacred land in my clan. It surely won't be wrong. That item is definitely inside, but over the years, no one has been able to obtain it. We will need the Elder's divine might when the time comes. Encouraged by Jin Liao's confident tone, the two voices also became somewhat excited. No problem. This time, the two of us have even brought a divine item from our clan. As long as that thing truly exists, we are certain we can get our hands on it. Chapter 444. Divine Transmission Hall. As Jin Liang conversed with those two strange voices, several figures were also flying towards the Divine Heritage Cave, located between the 4th and 5th mountains within the Void Rift. One of these figures was a young girl dressed in a snow-white vestment robe. Her waterfall-like hair cascaded down to her waist, and despite her young age, her chest was notably full and lifted the front of her vestment robe. What set the girl apart was the mysterious faint flame mark on her pure yet enchanting face, right between her eyebrows. This girl was none other than Huameyer, the little saintess from the Leaving Fire continent, whom Yi-chun had not seen since entering the Five Elements Mountain. Huameyer had also started her journey from within the 4th mountain, and her destination was strikingly the same as the Divine Heritage Cave. In the midst of her flight, her fair fingers occasionally brushed against a snow-white belt at her waist, and her eyes carried an indescribable meaning. Another figure, recognizably familiar to Yi-chun, would certainly catch his attention. This figure appeared to be a true saint mid-stage youth, but housed within this body was an incredibly powerful Void Sky true god. This was the three-eyed skeleton that had killed more than 70 warriors in the restricted ancient land, later using the soul transformation secret method to take over the corpse of the aforementioned youth and also abscond with the corpses of two other late-stage true saints. The mid-stage true saint youth, possessed by the three-eyed skeleton, muttered to himself as he flew towards the Divine Heritage Cave. This time, the beast that betrayed me in the past will surely come. Dreaming of snatching the treasures hidden deep within the cave? Heh! Keep dreaming. After murmuring to himself, the true saint mid-stage youth narrowed his eyes, and his speed increased dramatically. In just a few days, he had already reached the edge of the void rift that bordered the 4th and 5th mountains. After 4 days of flight, Yi-chun finally caught sight of the end of the 4th mountain and the faint outline of the more distant 5th mountain. Who would have thought? The 4th mountain, rumored to be far more dangerous than the 3rd, offered no dangers as I ventured through. I have actually passed through it without any trouble. It took only 4 days to fly across the terrain of the 4th mountain. Could it be because of the opening of the Divine Heritage Cave? As Yi-chun flew towards the Divine Heritage Cave, which he would soon reach, he reflected aloud. Upon entering the 4th mountain, Yi-chun had prepared himself for battles with powerful mystical creatures. Yet to his surprise, he had not encountered even one. Considering the time, there isn't much left of the 3-month exploration period in the 5 Elements Mountain. Only 20 days remain. According to the divine memories of Aole, the Divine Heritage Cave opens once every cycle, allowing 15 days for those inside to search for treasures. It seems this cave's opening is linked to the entire exploration period of the 5 Elements Mountain. It couldn't be a coincidence that it opens just as the exploration is nearing its end, while also leaving 5 days for people to leave. Such a grand arrangement for the exploration of the 5 Elements Mountain, and with the 5th mountain rumored to be insurmountable even for 4 tribulations true gods, the 4th mountain hides a treasure cave filled with inheritances of divine arts, divine artifacts, divine fruits, divine liquid, and countless treasures. One has to wonder who placed this treasure cave within the 5 Elements Mountain, and who constructed the 5 Elements Mountain itself. Only a true powerhouse could accomplish such a feat. As Yi-chun's thoughts raced, about half an hour more of flying finally brought him to the edge of the 4th mountain. He then laid eyes on the legendary Divine Heritage Cave. From the outside, the Divine Heritage Cave appeared as an ancient temple of square shape, perched atop the ceaseless void currents between the 4th and 5th mountains within the void rift. The chaotic void currents, so similar to those around the further 5th mountain, gave Yi-chun the impression that anyone who fell into them would be killed, even a 4 tribulations true god. The ancient temple atop the chaotic void currents, just 300 zhang in length, width, and height, seemed to contain a vast world within. A peculiar space surely created by the manipulation of space law. dark black in color, the surface of the Divine Heritage Cave was etched with countless enigmatic patterns, including totems of demons and ancient trees, formation arrays dizzying at a glance, and mysterious pits that flashed from time to time. Hanging in the bottomless rift between the fourth and fifth mountains, with the endless void currents raging 100 zhang above, the Divine Heritage Cave looked mystical and bizarre. Currently, a light gate had emerged outside the Divine Heritage Cave. If not for a light bridge extending from the edge of the fourth mountain directly to the already open gate of the Divine Heritage Cave amidst the terrifying destructive power of the below void currents, there would likely not be many daring to enter the cave. Yi Chun, standing on this side of the light bridge, did not rush into the cave just yet. His gaze turned towards a towering stone tablet beside the cave that stood over 800 zhang tall. Yi Chun remembered well that during the grand auction at the Sanxi Palace, where the treasure cave key was the finale, the deputy head of the Xuanji Pavilion had mentioned that since the Divine Heritage Cave relocated between the fourth and fifth mountains, a stone tablet explaining the situation of the cave had surfaced next to it. Before entering the Divine Heritage Cave, Yi Chun naturally wanted to read the characters engraved on the stele. After carefully reading the script on the stele and thinking it over, Yi Chun nodded. Just as the Vice Hall Master of Destiny had said at the grand auction, after the location of the Divine Heritage Cave shifted, entering it became even more dangerous, with a 90% chance of perishing during the treasure hunt. Moreover, the stele says that the entire treasure cave has 3 passages of life and death, each fraught with extremely dangerous challenges. The further one advances, the greater the peril. Of course, after each passage of life and death, there lies a treasure ground. Surviving one set of challenges grants access to the next trove where one can search for treasures. The latter the challenges, the more precious the treasures they guard. The entire treasure hunt lasts for 15 days. If one lacks confidence in overcoming the perilous life and death challenges, they should remain in the safe realms. After 15 days, they will be transported out. After reviewing the characters on the stele once again, Yi Chun stood by the edge of the fourth mountain, lost in silent contemplation for a long time, before his figure shifted, flying directly onto the light bridge. Upon setting foot on the light bridge, Yi Chun felt as if it contained a prohibition against flying, forcing him to move step by step towards the Divine Heritage Cave 1,000 feet away. As he walked, the sight of the unfathomably deep void rift below the light bridge, with its chaotic streams of void energy wildly surging, was enough to make anyone's heart throb with apprehension. Fortunately, the bridge was indeed marvelous, as the chaotic void streams had no effect on those walking above. After a short while, Yi Chun safely arrived at the light gate of the Divine Heritage Cave. Taking in a deep breath, Yi Chun stepped forward and entered the light gate. Upon entering the gate, Yi Chun felt instantly transported to an enormously vast hall that indeed harbored the space law. It was even larger than the entire Divine Heritage Cave seen from the outside, measuring over 1,000 feet high and 3,000 feet in length and width. Above the great hall hung a plaque that bore the bold, sweeping characters of Divine Transmission Hall. Those 3 characters undoubtedly concealed an incredibly powerful space law, and Yi Chun, with a single glance, almost lost his soul in their mysterious spatial depths. Had it not been for the cooling sensation from the ice jade pendant jolting Yi Chun to his senses, he might have sustained spiritual injuries from just that brief glimpse. To awaken from the Divine Transmission Hall's illusory space so quickly. This young man who has come in the mid-phase of soul transformation is quite capable. Just as Yi Chun regained his senses, he heard a soft chuckle directed at him. Turning towards the source of the light laughter, Yi Chun saw an elder with white brows, in the later phase of Heavenly Saint, curiously looking at him. This white-browed elder was seated within a circle of light. Yi Chun also noticed that next to the elder, there were 17 other light circles, and already 6 individuals were seated within them. There were a total of 18 light circles, each 9 feet apart from the others, and along with the white-browed elder, 7 people occupied the central ones. Clearly, these individuals had arrived at the Divine Heritage Cave before Yi Chun. The Divine Heritage Cave opened once every 100 years, and only 5 treasure cave keys were released at a time. How come so many people were here now? Yichun was taken aback. But in an instant, Yichun realized that, just like the treasure cave key he held, which had been left unused by someone who had obtained it in the past, there must be others here who had acquired keys from previous releases and were now using them. Upon seeing the faces of the few who had arrived before him, Yichun was even more startled. Among them, 3 were people he recognized. One of them, a charming and lovely girl, turned out to be Huameyer from the Leaving Fire continent. 2 light circles away from Huameyer was none other than Saint Jin Liang from the Shenjin continent. What shocked Yichun the most, however, was seeing the young man in the mid-phase of Heavenly Saint who had been possessed by the three-eyed skeleton's soul transformation. Although Yichun had seen the three-eyed skeleton procuring the treasure cave key in the forbidden ancient land, encountering this existence, akin to the level of the Void Sky True God, who had once battled him and then ceased hostilities upon witnessing Yichun's Biming secret tome Great Five Elements Sword Light, still left him profoundly shaken. At this moment, Jin Liang, seeing Yichun's arrival, was as curious as the white-browed elder about how quickly Yichun had awoken from the illusionary space of the divine transmission hall, and was scrutinizing him. The young man possessed by the three-eyed skeleton, on the other hand, was utterly taken aback upon seeing Yichun. He had not anticipated that the only youth who had survived in the forbidden ancient land would also appear within this divine heritage cave. Among the 3, when Huameyer saw Yichun, she blurted out in surprise, "Yichun, how did you come to the divine heritage cave as well?" Chapter 445, Bloody Flash Kill. Huameyer could never have imagined that Yichun would also appear inside the divine heritage cave. Yichun smiled at Huameyer and telepathically said, "I also stumbled upon a treasure cave key, by chance, and thought I'd come take a look." After telepathically communicating with Huameyer, Yichun, like the 7 others who had arrived before him, found a light circle towards the middle among the 18 and sat down. As for Huameyer's surprise, Yichun didn't see fit to explain much. After all, the treasure cave key he possessed was obtained after he killed Aolei, and naturally, he couldn't disclose this matter. Huameyer looked at Yichun as he sat down in a meditative posture, her beautiful eyes occasionally glancing over at him. It seemed as if she had something to say, but after looking at Jin Liang, she fell silent again. In the end, after holding back a few times, Huameyer couldn't help but telepathically communicate with Yichun. "Yichun, this time the treasure hunt in the Divine Heritage Cave is unlike any before, marking the most unique one in thousands of years. Intense disputes are very likely to occur, and the danger is much greater, so if you're not completely confident, don't venture too deeply." Yichun was quite surprised by Huameyer's words. The most unique one in thousands of years? Different from the usual treasure hunts? Yichun looked at Huameyer, only to see the young girl practicing with her eyes closed and paying no further heed to him, as if she had never sent any telepathic messages. When Yichun telepathically communicated with her again, Huameyer just smiled and was no longer willing to elaborate. Yichun pondered the meaning behind Huameyer's words when another divine telepathic message entered his mind. "Young lad, I didn't expect you to have a treasure cave key and make it to the divine heritage cave." This voice belonged to the three-eyed skeleton-possessed mid-stage heavenly saint young man, who was telepathically speaking to Yichun. "Young lad, let me remind you that this time the divine heritage cave is different from the past. Don't be careless, for even a moment's inattention, and even if you have a true god talisman, you may still fall." The words from the three-eyed skeleton that followed gave Yichun a chill in his heart. One warning from Huameyer about the unusual nature and high danger of this divine heritage cave had already made him take heed. Now, the three-eyed skeleton also started to warn him about the dangers of this divine heritage cave. This, of course, made Yichun take the situation very seriously, aware that there must be something particularly different about this divine heritage cave. Yichun even hesitated for a moment. Was it really wise to persevere and venture into the divine heritage cave? After all, judging by the demeanor of both Huameyer and the three-eyed skeleton, they seemed to understand a lot more about this place than he did, while he knew very little in comparison. Of course, after a fleeting hesitation, Yichun did not leave. Having arrived at the Divine Heritage Cave, he wouldn't back out, discouraged by just a couple of warnings, without even making an attempt. Naturally, he became even more vigilant and cautious in his heart. When Yi Chun similarly asked the three-eyed skeleton for elaboration, the three-eyed skeleton just smiled and replied telepathically, "If you survive the third segment of the path of life and death, we can talk about it then. For now, it's still too early to discuss those matters." After sending the message, the three-eyed skeleton also fell silent. Regarding Huameir's advice, Yi Chun had felt since their betting duel that the girl had been kind to him, so he wasn't surprised by her warning. But the three-eyed skeleton's reminder was something he completely didn't expect. It seems very likely that this three-eyed skeleton has a significant connection with the Baiming clan. Because of the relationship with the Baiming clan, he shows a bit of kindness toward me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stopped in the end within the forbidden ancient land, and now he even went out of his way to warn me. Certainly, even as Yi Chun felt the three-eyed skeleton's goodwill, he remained extremely cautious around this inscrutable being. After sitting down, Yi Chun, while keeping an eye on both the three-eyed skeleton and Huameir, also looked at the others present. These were the people who would be hunting for treasures with him in the Divine Heritage Cave, and of course, he needed to be observant of them. Of the 7 people who arrived before Yi Chun, he had already met Huameir, the three-eyed skeleton, and Jin Liang. Among the remaining 4, aside from the late-stage Heavenly Saint elderly man with white eyebrows whom Yi Chun heard speaking upon his entry into the Divine Transmission Hall, there were 2 others at the late stage of Heavenly Saint realm. One was corpulent while the other was extremely skinny. Such a stark contrast made one wonder if these 2 were acquainted. The only one not at the late stage of Heavenly Saint realm was a young man in white. This young man, at the early stage of Heavenly Saint realm, wore a headband on his forehead and held a folding fan in his hand, appearing much like a playboy. Through the conversation between this young man in white and the white-browed elder, Yi Chun learned of his identity. This young man in white was none other than the young master of the 9-star palace, the leading power of the Jumong continent from the 33 continents, named Ding Xiaojia. Even though Ding Xiaojia was the young master of the 9-star palace and seemed quite young, from his conversation with the white-browed elder, he mentioned having entered the Divine Heritage Cave once 600 years ago, and Yi Chun understood that this young man must be over 600 years old. The higher the martial artist's realm, the longer their lifespan. Even at 600 years of age, for someone in the Heavenly Saint realm, it was indeed akin to their youth. While Yi Chun was sizing up the 7 people in the area, no new arrivals came for a long while. It wasn't until half a day passed that a mid-stage Heavenly Saint realm youth flew in. After that, no one else entered the Divine Transmission Hall. In the end, there were only 9 people who came to the Divine Transmission Hall for this exploration. Yi Chun thought it over and soon understood why no one else was arriving. Those possession of the treasure cave key, like Huameir and others, must have been waiting near the Divine Heritage Cave, ready to enter as soon as it opened, and must have come here earlier. As for Yi Chun, he hadn't decided to come to the Divine Heritage Cave from the start and only set off after the treasure cave key showed activity, naturally falling a bit behind. This last Heavenly Saint realm youth who arrived was even later than Yi Chun, presumably because he was farther away from the Divine Heritage Cave. According to the stone tablet outside the Divine Heritage Cave, once the transmission light formation appeared in the Divine Transmission Hall, the treasure hunt in the Divine Heritage Cave could truly begin, and one would officially enter the first leg of the 3 deadly trials of the cave. 3 hours passed after the final youth arrived. Finally, in a corner of the Divine Transmission Hall, a transmission light formation about 3 fathoms in circumference appeared. The moment the transmission light formation appeared, all 9 people seated in meditation stood up. This transmission light formation isn't like the ancient teleportation formations that span continents and require a teleportation token to transport. As long as we stand inside this formation, we can be directly teleported to the first leg of the deadly trials. Haha! Since the transmission light formation has appeared, it means that the 15-day adventure for the treasure of the Divine Heritage Cave officially begins, so this old man will take the first step. The areas where the transmission light formation sends us within the deadly trial zone will be different for each person. Whether we will see each other again depends on our fate. Everyone, until we meet again. The white-browed elder, who had been curiously smiling at Yi Chun ever since his arrival, was the first to hold the treasure cave key and step into the transmission light formation. Whoosh! While the treasure cave key glimmered, the transmission light formation also flickered with light. Then the white-browed elder vanished. Heavenly Saint Xianyu is still so impatient. He's already taken the first step. I should set off as well, Jin Liang said, laughing as he stood up after the white-browed elder was transported away. He smiled at Huameyer. Mayor, be cautious on these 3 deadly trial legs. Since we will be transported to different locations, the chance of meeting is very slim, so I won't be able to look after you. Huameyer smiled sweetly back at Jin Liang. Jin, rest assured, your little sister will be very careful even if just for 1 or 2 treasures. Seeing this, Jin Liang laughed and then also stepped into the transmission light formation, disappearing from sight. What no one could sense, at the moment Jin Liang was transported, not only did the treasure cave key on his person flicker, but 2 rays of light from the treasure cave key also flickered inside a golden storage ring in his hand. After Jin Liang disappeared, Yi Chun subconsciously looked towards Huameyer and the 3-eyed skeleton, only to find a somewhat inexplicable meaning in both of their eyes. As if sensing Yi Chun's attention, Huameyer smiled at him. Yi Chun, I'm going ahead of you. After saying this, she too stepped into the transmission light formation and vanished from the divine transmission hall. As Huameyer was transported away, similar to the unnoticed twin flickers of light on Jin Liang, apart from the glimmer of the treasure cave key in her hand, there was also a flash of light from the treasure cave key within the space of her slender, snow-white belt around her waist. After 3 individuals were transported away, the others also crowded around the transmission light formation. The 4th person to hurry onto the transmission light formation was the Heavenly Saint Realm youth who arrived later than Yi Chun. Yi Chun saw this Heavenly Saint Realm youth holding the treasure cave key, standing on the platform with a mix of anticipation and nervousness, waiting to be teleported. But then, something astonishing happened. As the Heavenly Saint Realm youth's treasure cave key glowed, the entire transmission light formation suddenly blazed with a bloody radiance, ejecting the youth from the formation and shooting him back into the void of the divine transmission hall. In an instant, the bloody light flashed and instantly killed the Heavenly Saint Realm youth. Yi Chun only saw the anticipation on the young man's face turn into fear, surprise, and utter shock in an instant, and then he saw the youth perish, leaving not even ashes behind. This scene shocked 9-Star Palace's young master Ding Xiaojia to the core. Yi Chun was equally astonished at this moment. Yi Chun had not expected that even before officially entering the 3 deadly trials of the Divine Heritage Cave, someone would already be dead. The 2 late-stage Heavenly Saint Realm existences, both going pale in an instant, seemed to recall something and started to ponder deeply. Only the mid-stage Heavenly Saint Realm youth, who had been the 3-eyed skeleton all along, showed no change in expression from beginning to end. Chapter 446. What's going on? Why was this mid-stage Heavenly Saint young man killed by the teleportation array? Yi Chun was full of doubts. For a split second, Yi Chun wondered whether the treasure cave key the mid-stage Heavenly Saint young man held was a fake, causing the teleportation to fail and leading the Divine Heritage Cave to kill him as an intruder. However, Yi Chun clearly sensed when the mid-stage Heavenly Saint young man took out the treasure cave key, it was exactly the same as the one in his hand, and it also emitted that inexplicable aura unique to the Divine Heritage Cave. Couldn't possibly be fake. Without understanding this matter, Yi Chun feared stepping onto the teleportation formation next. His heart was uneasy, and he dared not stand on it lightly. Otherwise, if he were to be killed before even starting the treasure hunt, that would truly be a situation where even tears wouldn't come out. While Yi Chun was full of doubts, the 2 late-stage Heavenly Saint beings, one fat and one skinny, hesitated for a moment and then stepped onto the teleportation formation one after another, being teleported away. This made Yi Chun even more puzzled. Even the little prince from the 9-Star Palace, Ding Xiaojia, who was scared stiff, was completely bewildered. At this time, the three-eyed skeleton, who had been silent, spoke up. Hee, what a pity the young man died. As if aware of what Yi Chun and Ding Xiaojia were wondering, the three-eyed skeleton sneered. The treasure cave key in the young man's hand was indeed real, no doubt. However, his treasure cave key was one that had been circulated 1,000 years ago. Many people think as long as they have the treasure cave key, no matter when it was circulated, they can enter the Divine Heritage Cave. But what these people don't know is that any treasure cave key not used for over 1,000 years is already invalid. Trying to enter the Divine Heritage Cave with it not only prohibits entry but also results in being killed by the cave. 1,000 years unused, the treasure cave key is invalid? Upon use, one is directly killed by the cave. The words spoken by the three-eyed skeleton completely stunned Yi Chun. If the treasure cave key is invalid, why could it still guide that young man here? The mighty being who established this Divine Heritage Cave, with his immense power, could easily destroy 1,000 years unused treasure cave key, right? By leaving the treasure cave key to guide people here only to kill them in the end, isn't that harming them? Yi Chun couldn't help but ask the three-eyed skeleton. The three-eyed skeleton gave Yi Chun a look. The intentions of the mighty being who established this Divine Heritage Cave? Who could know? From the beginning, the Divine Heritage Cave contained countless treasures but also countless death traps. If you want the treasures, you must risk death. At that moment, Ding Xiaojia also asked the three-eyed skeleton, since you knew about this, why didn't you speak up to warn him? Warn! The three-eyed skeleton, transformed into a mid-stage heavenly saint young man, laughed. What a joke! Why should I warn anyone? In this Divine Heritage Cave, each person who comes in is a competitor. If you obtain one more treasure, it may mean that someone else will not get it. Many people wish for more people to die, so they have less competition for treasures. As if recalling something, the voice of the three-eyed skeleton was unusually cold. How do I know which time period my treasure cave key came from? It could have passed through many hands for all I know. Ding Xiaojia hesitated, daring not step into the teleportation light. The three-eyed skeleton simply glanced at him indifferently, paying him no mind, and directly stepped toward the teleportation light. Just when Yi Chun thought the three-eyed skeleton would also be teleported away, the three-eyed skeleton stopped just before stepping into the teleportation light, turned around, and walked back to Yi Chun. He stretched out his hand toward Yi Chun. Boy, let me see your treasure cave key. Yi Chun had not expected this move from the three-eyed skeleton. After a brief contemplation, Yi Chun took out the treasure cave key from his hand. The three-eyed skeleton closely examined the treasure cave key in Yi Chun's hand, then said, this treasure cave key should have been circulated within the last 300 years. There's no issue entering the Divine Heritage Cave. Yi Chun had not expected the three-eyed skeleton to take the trouble to check the period of his treasure cave key. This was indeed a surprise to Yi Chun. The treasure cave key Yi Chun held had been obtained from Ao Lei, who in turn had purchased it at the grand auction. According to the deputy pavilion master who presided over the auction, this treasure cave key had been circulated just before the last opening of the Divine Heritage Cave, which indeed was within the last 300 years. As Yi Chun was still surprised by the three-eyed skeleton's actions, the three-eyed skeleton gave Yi Chun another look, took out a law-pattern jade token, pressed it to his forehead, and recorded some divine sense onto the jade token, before tossing it into Yi Chun's hands. Afterward, the three-eyed skeleton, without looking back, directly stepped into the teleportation light and was teleported away. Yi Chun, holding the law-pattern jade token the three-eyed skeleton had thrown to him, sensed it with his divine sense and an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. Finally, Yi Chun smiled and stored the law-pattern jade token inside the ice snow jade pendant. At this time, the only ones left in the divine transmission hall yet to be teleported were him and the little prince from the 9-star palace, Ding Xiaojia. Yi Chun gave Ding Xiaojia a gentle smile, and then walked into the teleportation light as well. Although both the three-eyed skeleton and the former deputy sovereign of destiny had said that the treasure cave key in his possession had been passed down within the last 300 years, Yi Chun still felt some inexplicable nervousness. What made Yi Chun even more anxious was that he had to bring the 9 Ice Guard into the Divine Heritage Cave with him. Rumors had it that anyone who entered the Divine Heritage Cave without the treasure cave key, whether martial artists or demon beasts, would be exterminated. Entering the Divine Heritage Cave while hidden in a spatial artifact certainly wouldn't work. However, Yi Chun learned from Ao Lei's information about the Divine Heritage Cave that unless the spatial artifact was a middle-grade divine artifact that even the Divine Heritage Cave couldn't detect, entry would be impossible. But a middle-grade divine artifact, that was a supremely powerful thing that only true gods or divine kings could employ. And such beings, how could they regard the Divine Heritage Cave as something worth their attention? So basically, no one attempting to venture into the Divine Heritage Cave could directly bring others inside with a spatial artifact, unless the people inside also had a treasure cave key. Knowing this, Yi Chun immediately inquired about the grade of the Ice Snow Jade Pendant from the 9 Ice Guard. Indeed, the Ice Snow Jade Pendant did not disappoint, being a legacy of the Icebound Divine King. The 9 Ice Guard declared it to be a top-grade spatial divine artifact. Therefore, Yi Chun prepared to bring the 9 Ice Guard into the Divine Heritage Cave, carrying them inside the Ice Snow Jade Pendant. With regards to both the timing of the release of the treasure cave key and whether he could successfully bring the 9 Ice Guard into the Divine Heritage Cave, Yi Chun naturally had some worries since he hadn't actually set foot in the Divine Heritage Cave yet. In the end, the things Yi Chun worried about did not occur. Just as Yi Chun stood upon the transmission array, his mind anxiously unsettled, the light from the transmission array flashed, and just like Huameyer and Jin Liang before him, Yi Chun also disappeared smoothly through the transmission. In the end, only Ding Xiaojia was left alone in the Divine Transmission Hall. That person could sense the time when the treasure cave key was released, yet he didn't help me check. Ding Xiaojia felt extremely frustrated. He looked at the treasure cave key in his hand and then at the transmission array, alternating his gaze. After hesitating for a while and preparing to step forward, he thought of the mid-stage Heavenly Saint young man who had been killed by the transmission array earlier. Remembering the young man's fear, surprise, and utter shock, Ding Xiaojia hesitated. In the end, he remembered what was written on the enormous stele outside the Divine Heritage Cave. The transmission time for the first segment of the life and death path was only 1 hour, and missing the window meant missing the transmission. Ding Xiaojia then gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and stood within the transmission array. At the moment of successful transmission, he took a long breath of relief and, without even having time to wipe the sweat from his forehead, disappeared as the last person from the Divine Transmission Hall. After an inexplicable bout of dizziness, when Yi Chun regained consciousness, he found himself standing in the middle of a vast golden desert. This place was the first checkpoint of the life and death path, the Desert of Death. Only by traversing this Desert of Death could one pass the first checkpoint and move on to seek treasures in the next location. Yi Chun looked at the Desert of Death and felt that the entire desert, just like the gathering continent he had seen before the Five Elements Mountain, the heavenly evolution continent, was boundless and golden yellow in color. Moreover, Yi Chun sensed that there was a flight prohibition in this desert, making it impossible to fly within it. To traverse this vast desert, one could only walk across it on foot. The total time allowed for treasure hunting in the Divine Heritage Cave is only 15 days. If one cannot cross this vast desert within 15 days, they will die right here. Of course, to reach the subsequent areas to hunt for treasures, one must pass through here even faster than 15 days. After all, there are still the second and third checkpoints of the life and death path waiting ahead. I wonder what dangers lie within this great desert. Looking at the boundless desert, Yi Chun did not immediately set off, but instead lightly moved his hand. The law-patterned jade token, given to him by the three-eyed skeleton before departing, appeared in his hand again. That three-eyed skeleton, I do not know why, but he keeps helping me. Could it really be because of the secret tome of the North Ming, from the North Ming clan? Within the law-patterned jade token, the three-eyed skeleton had left information about a very important treasure for Yi Chun. The three-eyed skeleton said that he had entered the Divine Heritage Cave 5 times and knew it like the back of his hand. The three-eyed skeleton told Yi Chun that in the first treasure spot after the first segment of the life and death path, there was an item known as the netherworld ant, an incredibly peculiar spirit insect that can produce a substance immensely beneficial to rotating pill realm warriors, a type of ant crystal called red sun crystal. According to the three-eyed skeleton, after consuming a red sun crystal, warriors in the rotating pill realm would find it remarkably effective for comprehending the 5 great virtual heavenly laws to their fullest extent. Seeing that Yi Chun had reached the mid-stage of the rotating pill realm and was pushing towards the late stage, the three-eyed skeleton specifically informed Yi Chun about this treasure. The three-eyed skeleton also said that to capture the netherworld ant capable of producing red sun crystal, one must find a certain item in the first location, the Desert of Death, which may help in successfully capturing the netherworld ant later on. This item, hidden within the Desert of Death, is known as Warm Sun Sand. Chapter 447. Deadly Danger in the Desert. First, I have to find the warm sun sand in this initial segment of the path between life and death, the Desert of Death, and then, with the help of the warm sun sand, capture the netherworld ants in the first treasure hunting area. The red sun crystal, produced by the netherworld ants, has bizarre effects on martial artists in the middle rotary pill stage for comprehending the great achievements of the 5 major void law principles. Yi Chun pondered upon the information from the law pattern jade token left by the three-eyed skeleton. Then, as if thinking of something, his heart stirred. His divine sense instantly immersed into the ice snow jade pendant, reaching out to the 9 great icy guardians within. 9 seniors, have you heard of netherworld ants and warm sun sand? Netherworld ants? Warm sun sand? Ever since Yi Chun had entered this first segment of the path between life and death, the 9 great icy guardians had been vigilantly guarding against surrounding dangers on his behalf. Hearing Yi Chun's inquiry, they were slightly taken aback and began to furrow their brows in thought. Never heard of it. Prince Yi Chun, we have not heard of such items. Could they be unique to these 33 continents? One after another, the icy guardians shook their heads. Just when Yi Chun thought these icy guardians from other continents of Star Continent might not know about these 2 items, Bing Shursan, one of the 9 great icy guardians, seemed to recall something, and his eyes lit up. Prince Yi Chun, I think I've heard of netherworld ants and that warm sun sand. As soon as Bing Shursan spoke, not only Yi Chun but also the other 8 icy guardians turned their attention to him. Bing Shursan seemed to fall into reminiscence. I remember after I arrived at the Savage Continent, I had slain a few martial artists of the Heavenly Saint stage. In the Divine Soul memories of one of them, there was mention of these 2 things. That warrior's memory mentioned that the netherworld ants are a kind of strange in-attribute spiritual insect, which especially enjoys devouring yang attribute objects. That warm sun sand is said to be an utmost yang object. After being consumed by the netherworld ants, the combination of yin and yang attributes, and the derivation of the 5 elements, could give birth to a bizarre substance that could greatly stimulate the origins of the 5 elements. That bizarre substance, it seems to be called red sun crystal. Yes, it's called red sun crystal. Prince Yi Chun, these items were discovered by that warrior in an ancient text, but the warm sun sand and netherworld ants are said to be extremely rare. That warrior had never personally seen them. The memory of a late-stage Heavenly Saint powerhouse was incredibly powerful. As soon as Bing Shursan accessed those past memories, he immediately brought them all out and relayed them to Yi Chun. Hearing Bing Shursan's words, Yi Chun nodded, said a few smiling words to the 9 icy guardians, and then his divine sense exited the ice snow jade pendant. So there really are warm sun sand and netherworld ants? The three-eyed skeleton really was helping me and not deceiving me. This time, Yi Chun reviewed the information in the law pattern jade token given by the three-eyed skeleton even more earnestly, and then committed the details about the warm sun sand and netherworld ants deep into his mind. Since that's the case, besides just getting through this first segment of the path between life and death, it seems necessary to search for the warm sun sand. The three-eyed skeleton said that somewhere in the east of this first segment of the path between life and death, he had once come across warm sun sand, but because he was pressed for time, he only took part of it and did not fully excavate the warm sun sand. Let's go and check that place out. From my current location to that spot and then moving east for a while, I should be able to leave this first segment of the path between life and death. Yichen looked at the blazing sun in the sky, the treasure cave key in his hand also flashing with directional guidance. After identifying the bearings, Yichen proceeded to travel forth. The first segment of the path between life and death, the Desert of Death, is an endless golden yellow sand desert. Although there is a no-flight restriction in this area, which means flying is banned, there is no interference with the coverage of divine sense. After cultivating to the middle rotary pill stage, Yichen's range of divine sense coverage had expanded to a radius of 100 miles. This checkpoint of the path between life and death is so dangerous that one could easily perish within it, with the tablet at the entrance even mentioning a 90% chance of death, so of course Yichen had to be extremely cautious. As he journeyed, Yichen had already extended his divine sense to survey the area within 100 miles. After ensuring there were no issues, he used Void Instantaneous Change to instantly shift to the midpoint of the 100-mile area. Then he continued to explore further ahead, instantly moving and progressing forward. Even without the ability to fly with the help of Void Instantaneous Change, Yichen could still advance very quickly. If not for the fact that scanning for safety took time, the continuous use of Void Instantaneous Change would hardly have been slower than flying. The only disadvantage for Yichen was that using Divine Sense for exploration and Void Instantaneous Change consumed a considerable amount of Divine Soul power. Though Yichen's Divine Soul had undergone 2 fusions and training in a specific Divine Soul secret art, making it much stronger than an average practitioner at the middle rotary pill stage, he still needed to rest after scouting about 1,000 miles to recover his Divine Soul power before he could continue on his way. With a stop-and-go pace, Yichen estimated that it would take roughly 1 day to reach the area pointed out by the 3-eyed skeleton that might contain the warm sun sand, and about 1.5 days to walk out of this first segment of the path between life and death. After walking for 6 hours in the Desert of Death and covering a great distance without encountering any deadly dangers in the Grand Desert, Yichen's sense of unease only heightened, keeping him extraordinarily focused. Yichen knew that since this was the life and death trial, it couldn't possibly be safe. The quieter it was, the more unusual it meant it was. Luckily, Yichen was highly focused. He didn't rush forward in this Desert of Death, but maintained high alert at all times. At a certain moment, after more than 7 hours of walking, just as Yichen instantaneously moved into a sand dune and his divine sense detected no danger, a sudden and inexplicable threat of death overwhelmed him. Yichen's heart skipped a beat. As he had just looked around, he shockingly saw 3 incredibly fast streaks of light that, in the blink of an eye, reached right in front of him. In practically no time for Yichen to react, the streaks directly targeted his head, chest, and core vital areas. Bang! 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 Then, 3 muffled sounds followed, and the 3 fast streaks of light were deflected by an unknown force from Yichen's body, allowing Yichen to clearly see what they were. These 3 streaks of light turned out to be 3 golden scorpions, the same color as the glittering sands of the Desert of Death he was traveling through. The 3 golden scorpions were only the length of a palm, yet the power they had unleashed in an instant was on par with a late-stage heavenly saint. Even more bizarrely, they were able to evade Yichen's divine sense detection, and even the vigilance of the 9 great ice guardians around him, instantly launching an attack on Yichen. If not for the defensive artifact, Purple Mist True Garment on Yichen, which had blocked the attack of the 3 golden scorpions just in time, their sudden ambush could have severely wounded Yichen in an instant. Desert of Death. Death's menace. Just moments ago, Yichen nearly succumbed to this deadly menace with a single blow. When he saw the 3 golden scorpions reveal themselves, Yichen too was greatly shocked. The Divine Heritage Cave with a 90% chance of fatality had shown its first danger on this initial leg of the life and death path, making Yichen realize the 90% fatality rate was no exaggeration. The 3 golden scorpions were too odd, able to evade detection, possessing such rapid speed and formidable attack power. While Yichen's heart was still in shock, the 3 golden scorpions that had been repelled flashed once again and disappeared. With his divine sense exploration, Yi-chan couldn't determine where these golden scorpions had hidden. At the next moment, countless streaks of light burst forth, with over 100 golden scorpion lights flying toward Yi-chan to attack once more. Although Yi-chan had some doubts the initial 3 golden scorpions would lurk for a while before attacking again, he didn't relax his vigilance at all, but was even more cautious about their potential second consecutive assault. The instant the 100-plus golden scorpions shot out, Yi-chan's large hand suddenly grabbed, and the 372 apertures rotating pills of mid-stage rotating pill manifested from within his core explosively, unleashing peerless, fire-based divine art, heaven-devouring true fire, that rolled out instantly into a fiery dragon, engulfing the sky filled with lights of golden scorpions. At the same time, Yi-chen's life-bound flying sword Crimson Fire burst out from within the void heaven sword embryo, with its fiery red sword glow flashing, also plunging into the horde of golden scorpions. On another front, with a wave of his large hand, Yi-chen's ice-sealed physique infused with the basic 810 moves, while the purple mist true garment protected his entire body, guarding against any sudden sneak attacks from the golden scorpions. After stepping into the mid-stage rotating pill, Yi-chen's mastery of the 5 great void heavens laws had greatly increased, enhancing his 5 great divine arts qualitatively. The current Yi-chen, with his true combat prowess, could even stand a fight against late-stage heavenly saint powerhouses. With all his methods deployed, more than 30 of the 100-plus golden scorpions were immediately burned by the true fire or cut down by the sword. Only then did the remaining golden scorpions realize they couldn't kill Yi-chan anymore and, with a swoosh, swoosh, swoosh of flashing lights, they finally disappeared. After witnessing the golden scorpions vanish completely, Yi-chan took a deep breath, reinvigorated his true chi, and then resumed his journey. What Yi-chan didn't know was that at the same time he encountered the high-speed assault of the Desert of Death's golden scorpions. In other realms, be it sooner or later, similar deadly threats were unfolding. In another realm thousands of miles from Yi-chan, the first one to enter the first leg of the Divine Heritage Cave's life and death path, a late-stage heavenly saint with white eyebrows called Heavenly Saint Xianyu, was wiping sweat from his forehead while looking at the corpses of 3 golden scorpions before him. I had heard that since the location of the Divine Heritage Cave had shifted, the danger had increased significantly, but I didn't expect this first leg of the life and death path to be so terrifying. If it weren't for my spirit-trembling talisman that fended off the sneak attack of these 3 scorpions, I might have been injured before I could react. Fortunately, I managed to kill them. I have no clue what kind of strange species these scorpions are that could even evade my detection. The white-eyebrowed Heavenly Saint Xianyu curled his divine chi, sweeping the corpses of the 3 golden scorpions into his palm to examine them. While he was observing, the next moment, hundreds of lights suddenly flashed into motion. He had just managed to raise his gaze from the scorpion corpses in his hand when he was completely swarmed by the scintillating golden lights. Then, an extremely horrifying scream pierced the air, and as the swarm of golden scorpions dispersed in all directions, the white-eyebrowed elder had completely vanished, not even leaving a corpse behind. The desert where he was located once again became quiet and tranquil.
Chapter 448 Accident.
Elsewhere, in the hands of Ding Xiaojia, the young master of the 9-star palace in the Jumong continent, a talisman turned into flying ash and disappeared without a trace. In front of him, the corpses of hundreds of basin-sized fire red butterflies fell onto the glittering vast desert of death. Damn it! This treasure hunt in the Divine Heritage Cave is really dangerous. Last time I entered the Divine Heritage Cave, I never encountered so many threats. Right after teleporting in, someone was killed by the transmission light formation. I've only traveled a little over 500 li, and I've already been attacked by monsters 3 times. The first wave of attacks, that group of golden scorpions. If it hadn't been for the heavenly spirit shield my father prepared for me, I might have fallen for their tricks. The weird black snake and the hallucinogenic fire red butterfly that followed have already cost me 2 battle talismans. If this keeps up, I'm afraid the treasures I've prepared won't be enough to deal with the dangers of this treasure hunt. Gazing at the corpses of the fire-red butterflies on the ground, Ding Xiaojia's expression shifted. Then he gritted his teeth, and with a flash of light in his hand, a green flute appeared. It seems that only by wielding this divine artifact can I be somewhat safer, though it will use up some of the divine jade needed to activate it in advance. Looking out toward the boundless desert of death ahead, Ding Xiaojia finally steeled his resolve and instantly flew into the green flute. Then, this green flute astonishingly transformed directly into a green snake and began to weave its way through the golden sand. This green flute, a divine artifact, was not only a spatial artifact into which one could fly but could also change shape and move at high speed. Ant, thank you for your help just now. I didn't expect the danger of this divine heritage cave to exceed my expectations. Just now, I managed to fend off 6 rounds of attacks, but in the 7th round, I almost fell for it without being careful. In a certain area in the western part of the Great Desert, Huomeyer's charming face briefly registered shock before returning to composure. 10 zhang before her, a black rat-like monster lay dead in the desert. Beside Huomeyer stood a woman in green clothing, carrying an ancient sword on her back. This woman's aura was even stronger than that of the three-eyed skeleton at its full burst during the battle with Yi Chun in the restricted ancient grounds. Hearing Huomeyer's words, the woman in green affectionately stroked her head. Mayor, this time is different from before. You have to avenge your mother. You can't be the least bit distracted. Yes, I understand, Aunt. Upon hearing the words of the woman in green, Huomeyer's lovely face took on a gravely serious expression, and the faint mark of a flame on her forehead started to shimmer with a strange light. Seeing Huomeyer's demeanor, the woman in green smiled, and with a swift motion, she vanished instantly. The next moment, Huomeyer touched the white belt around her waist and continued on her way. In the northern part of the first section of the Path of Life and Death in the Desert of Death, the three-eyed skeleton, now in the guise of a young man in the mid-stage of heavenly sanctity, looked out over the endless desert and sneered. Every 3,300 years, the cycle turns, and indeed, this first section of the Path of Life and Death has presented 9 mortal dangers, unlike the mere 3 minor dangers of the past. Heh. I wonder how many of those who came this time will be able to make it to the 3rd section of the treasure ground. That Scourge, he is certainly one who will make it. In the end, the three-eyed skeleton's eyes gleamed with a chilling light. Soon after, his sleeves swept up, and he disappeared from the desert altogether. Yi Chun, who was journeying through the Divine Heritage Cave, was unaware of the experiences of others. 2 days after entering the first section of the Path of Life and Death, Yi Chun finally emerged from the endless desert of death. Although it took half a day longer than expected to get out, Yi Chun, who had survived countless perilous attacks, looked at the transmission light formation that appeared at the edge of the great desert with a satisfied smile on his face. With a flip of his palm, a small gray pouch appeared in his hand. Although this first section of the Path of Life and Death was perilous, relying on numerous methods and the help of the 9 great ice guards, I managed to get through smoothly. But unexpectedly, it was a great haul, allowing me to discover so much warm sun sand. Yi Chun sent his divine consciousness into the gray pouch and saw tens of thousands of golden red grains of sand shining with the brilliance of the midday sun. These round golden red grains were the warm sun sand needed to capture the netherworld ants. In the desert of death, following the guidance of the three-eyed skeleton's law pattern jade token, Yi Chun headed to the region where the warm sun sand mentioned by the three-eyed skeleton was said to be located. As a result, after digging 5 feet below the golden sand grains, a pit filled with warm sun sand appeared before Yi Chun. In that pit, Yi Chun directly discovered over 80,000 grains of warm sun sand. According to the three-eyed skeleton, 10,000 grains of warm sun sand were enough to attract a netherworld ant, and the remaining sand could be used to feed the netherworld ant once it was truly captured. Originally, finding over 80,000 grains of warm sun sand had already satisfied Yi Chun. Unexpectedly, just then, Yi Chun encountered the 7th wave of life or death danger in the desert of death and was attacked by a black burrowing rat. After battling with the burrowing rat, The creature was defeated and fled in panic. After Yichun killed it in its burrow, he sensed an even stronger presence of warm sun sand, not far from the burrowing rat's cave. As a result, Yichun dug and discovered a pit even larger than the previous one filled with warm sun sand, containing as many as 700,000 to 800,000 grains. This discovery, of course, thrilled Yichun immensely. Yichun directly took out a spirit sack from the ice snow jade pendant and collected all 700,000 to 800,000 grains of warm sun sand into the bag. Adding to the previously found 80,000 grains, the amount of warm sun sand Yichun had acquired this time was almost close to 1,000,000 grains. This warm sun sand was an exceedingly precious item of ultimate yang nature. Not only was it very useful for breeding netherworld ants, it was also usable in artifact refining. Bing Shirsan had even mentioned that it played a significant role in refining divine artifacts. Moreover, this warm sun sand could also remove evil spirits and nourish the soul. In short, it had no small number of uses. Such a large quantity of warm sun sand was found, which of course thrilled Yichun immensely. Having acquired the warm sun sand smoothly, Yichun became even more confident about the upcoming capture of the netherworld ant. On the edge of the great desert, after looking at the magical grains of warm sun sand in the bag once more, Yichun put the bag back into the ice snow jade pendant. Afterward, his figure moved, and he flew into the transmission light formation at the edge of the great desert. The great desert was the first checkpoint of the path of life and death. After passing the first segment of the life and death checkpoint, the first treasure land would appear. Passing through the transmission light formation would directly enter the treasure land. Instantly after Yichun stepped into the transmission light formation, he vanished from the edge of the great desert, and in the next moment, as heaven and earth turned, Yichun had already arrived in a world of green mountains and clear waters. Is this the first treasure land? According to the sky-shocking stele, there is only 1 day of treasure hunting time in each treasure land. Once entering the treasure land, after 1 day, whether or not the treasure is found, the treasure cave key will transport us out of the treasure land. This 1 day of treasure hunting time must be used wisely. In this first treasure land, since I already have a target in the netherworld ant, let's first go find that netherworld ant. This place is unlike the path of life and death where there is a ban on flying. Here I can freely fly to hunt for treasures without any danger. It's a place specially meant for treasure hunting. Much more comfortable. It is rumored that countless treasures in this treasure land are all hidden in various treasure caves. There are caves on mountains, in water, in the earth, and even in the cracks of space, where treasure caves may be hidden. First find the netherworld ant. If there's extra time, then see if other treasures can be found. The three-eyed skeleton said that the last time he found the netherworld ant was more than 1,300 years ago. Netherworld ants, according to legend, are a unique type of attribute spirit insect with a lifespan of only 1,000 years. Presumably, after these 1,300 years, the old netherworld ants have long since died, and many new netherworld ants must have appeared. Yichun surveyed the green mountains and clear waters of this first treasure land. Then, determining his direction, he flew towards a northern pile of earth in the treasure land that was said to be over 30 zhang high and a dense cave. After flying for about 3 hours, Yichun finally saw the small mound over 30 zhang tall on the ground not far ahead in the void. But when Yichun flew down in front of the small mound and found a hidden cave within it, and truly entered inside, what he saw in the treasure cave completely surprised Yichun, who was prepared to capture the netherworld ant. Chapter 449. Acknowledging the Master. The treasure cave hidden inside the small mound of earth was a long, narrow passageway, over 30 feet wide and more than 300 feet long. When Yichun entered this secret passageway, he found that there were no netherworld ants moving about at all. He could only see several spheres the size of human heads hanging on the wall at the very end of the passageway, emanating a dark red glow. Besides those several head-sized spheres with dark red glow, there was an even larger sphere that displayed a mystical golden yellow color. What surprised Yichun even more was that on the walls of this very hidden secret passageway, in addition to the hanging spheres of 2 colors, There were deep and chaotically scattered battle marks, and on the ground, the desiccated corpses of thousands of spirit insects could be seen. When Yi-chun looked at the thousands of spirit insect corpses, he directly discovered that a large portion of them were indeed the corpses of the netherworld ants he had been searching for. Even though they were desiccated, one could still make out the general appearance of these fist-sized netherworld ants. These netherworld ants were completely black and even had a pair of wings. The natural and mystical patterns on their wings looked like skull totems, mysteriously and eerily so. What Yi-chun had not expected was, in his search for the netherworld ants, they had already died and desiccated, becoming heaps of carcasses. Yi-chun then looked at the other spirit insect carcasses and saw that, apart from the netherworld ant carcasses, the remaining carcasses were all left by another type of spirit insect. This other type of spirit insect was much less in number than the netherworld ants, but twice as large. More so, one could see that these spirit insects were entirely fiery red in color, without wings on their body, but they had two fiery red fangs at the mouth, a type of fire-red giant ant that Yi-chun had never seen before. Upon seeing the scene before him, Yi-chun came to a realization. Perhaps it was the great battle between these two types of spirit insects that left the secret passageway in such disarray and countless battle scars. It was probably also this great battle of the spirit insects that resulted in so many of them dying, leaving behind these thousands of spirit insect carcasses. But what about those spheres on the wall that emitted a dark red glow? And what about that even larger golden yellow sphere? Yi-chun's divine senses instantly penetrated into these spheres, and upon immersing his senses, his eyes suddenly widened. The solitary larger golden yellow sphere contained something that was immensely useful for a rotating pill realm martial artist to make significant progress in the 5 major laws of the rotating pill realm. A peculiar ant crystal, produced by the netherworld ants, the red sun crystal. Yi-chun could not have expected that although the netherworld ants were dead, they had left behind an ample amount of red sun crystal, here reaching more than a dozen kilograms. These red sun crystals might not be enough for him to use for advancing to the later stages of the rotating pill realm, but they would certainly provide significant assistance. But even more astonishing to Yi-chun were those several head-sized dark red spheres. Inside these dark red spheres were long, slender black-red insect eggs. And when Yi-chun sensed these eggs, he could directly feel that life still emanated from within these eggs. These eggs were still alive. Could it be that after the great battle between the netherworld ants and the other species of spirit insects, although they all died, some of their eggs were left behind? If that's the case, as long as these eggs hatch, I will still be able to obtain netherworld ants, and the newly hatched netherworld ants will continue to produce red sun crystals endlessly. However, according to the three-eyed skeleton, the eggs of the netherworld ants are black in color. These eggs, although similar in shape to the eggs of the netherworld ants, are black and red in color. Could it be a new type of egg resulting from the fusion of two species of ant-like spirit insects? Yi-chun's gaze directly shifted to the other carcasses of the fiery red giant ants on the ground, apart from the blackish netherworld ant carcasses, as if he had come upon some incredulous thought. Can netherworld ants actually fuse with other spirit ants? With a thought, Yi-chun immediately called out the 9 ice protectors from the ice snow jade pendant. The 9 ice guardians transformed into figures of Yi-chun's size and all flew out of the ice snow jade pendant, standing next to Yi-chun. Seniors, do you recognize this other kind of spirit insect? Yi-chun pointed at the fist-sized, fiery red ant carcasses on the floor of the passageway and asked the 9 ice guardians. Upon seeing the thousands of spirit insect carcasses on the ground, as well as the numerous battle scars on the walls of the passageway, and then noticing the skull-sized, black and red luminous spheres hanging on the walls, the ice guardians knew what Yi-chun was asking about. The 9 ice guardians all looked closely at the fiery red ants. Among them, Bing Shirsan, who knew of the netherworld ant and warm sun sand, spoke first. It is said that netherworld ants never cohabit with other ant species, for they are inattribute spirit insects, inherently possessing extraordinary combat strength, especially a mysterious restraint against divine soul power. Other spirit insects dare not provoke the netherworld ants without good reason. What are these red ants? Despite being outnumbered by the netherworld ants, They actually managed to kill so many. Bing Shirsan could not identify the origins of these fiery red giant ants. However, at that moment, Bing Shi and Bing Shire exchanged glances, as if they had just recalled something. Bing Shi said directly, "These fiery red ants are very likely what Bing Shire and I once heard of, the flame ants. It is rumored that even true flame fire can be produced within the flame ants' bodies. Extremely supreme yang. It's said that merely approaching a martial artist, the flame ants could make them feel as though they are being scorched by endless true fire, unbearably hot. The venom unleashed by a swarm of adult flame ants is even potent enough to kill a powerful spirit beast in the late Heavenly Saint stage." Bing Shire also nodded and said, "Your Highness Yi Chan, the flame ants are a rare and extraordinary insect, probably even more formidable than the netherworld ants. In this passageway, despite their smaller numbers, they have killed even more netherworld ants. Flame ants are of supreme yang, and netherworld ants are of supreme yin. Two spirit insects of utterly opposite attributes are fighting here, leaving behind dozens of eggs, possibly involving secrets of spirit insects that we are unaware of. Judging by the appearance of these eggs, they are very likely a new kind of insect egg produced by the fusion of the two types of spirit insects. If these new eggs can successfully hatch into new spirit insects, it is unpredictable what kind of new spirit insect, having both the attributes of flame ants and netherworld ants, will appear. If they undergo a peculiar metamorphosis, they might turn out to be even more extraordinary than the flame ants and netherworld ants. Spirit insects are a species distinct from both demons and human martial artists. The 9 Ice Guardians also knew little about spirit insects, but with their discerning eyes, they could sense the uniqueness of these new eggs left by the 2 extraordinary spirit insects. Bing Shi even said to Yi Chun, "Your Highness Yi Chun, these new insect eggs, while the spirit insects have not hatched, are best suited for establishing a master. Once you become their master, the spirit insects will be at your command. If these spirit insects undergo peculiar changes in the future, it could be a significant aid to you. Even if there are no peculiar changes, you can always release the bond without any loss."
Ye Chan nodded.
In this first treasure cave, he had originally come to capture netherworld ants, but had not expected to encounter this situation, which also took Yi-chan by surprise. Fortunately, there were still about 10 kilograms of red sun crystals to be used, which would help in his attempt to break from the mid-phase to the late phase of the rotating pill realm. As for the netherworld ants themselves, although the netherworld ants had all died, the potentially hybrid insect eggs from the fusion of netherworld ants and flame ants were an unexpected gain. Just as Bing Shi suggested, let's establish a bond with these spirit insects to see what kind of form they will take once hatched from these eggs. During his cultivation in the Taishan sect, Yi Chun had learned the methods to tame and bond with spirit insects and spirit beasts. Having decided to bond with these new insect eggs, Yi Chun no longer hesitated and followed the techniques to infuse his divine consciousness into the several dozens of black and red insect eggs within the black and red spheres, beginning the bonding ritual. Half an hour later, Yi Chun moved and flew out of this secret cave, returning to the small mound of dirt above ground. By then, the dozens of black and red spheres in the passageway, as well as the golden spheres containing the red sun crystals, had all vanished without a trace. Even the thousands of spirit insect carcasses on the ground had disappeared without a trace. Chapter 450 Primordial Divine Light. One day later, Yi Chun was taken by the treasure cave key and flew away from the first treasure site, entering the second stage of the life and death path checkpoint. Standing in a vast expanse of amber-colored world, Yi Chun couldn't help but smile wryly. It turned out that during the treasure hunt in the first site the day before, aside from finding the red sun crystal and some new insect eggs in a little mound, he came up empty-handed for the rest of the time. The day of treasure hunting opportunity that I had earned by going through the desert of death life and death road with immense difficulty is far from enough. After coming out from the small mound, I discovered 4 more treasure caves, but they were all empty. The treasures inside had long been taken by warriors who entered the Divine Heritage Cave before me. Later on, when I finally found some traces of treasures, I didn't even manage to locate the caves where these treasures were hidden before I was directly teleported out. It seems, to have another chance at treasure hunting, I must push through the second stage of the life and death road and gain access to the second treasure site.
Ye Chan Siket.
However, when his divine sense penetrated into the ice-snow jade pendant and saw the to-be-hatched black-red insect eggs, the red sun crystal, and a bag of warm sun sand tucked in the corner of the pendant space, Yi-chun couldn't help but nod and smile. After all, although he didn't find anything later on, his initial gains were not too bad, and he didn't leave the treasure site empty-handed. Let's set aside the matter of treasures for now. It's more important to concentrate on getting through the second stage of the life and death road checkpoint. The Divine Heritage caves 3 stages of life and death roads and 3 treasure sites, each hiding countless treasure caves. This further the stage, the more dangerous the life and death road and the more precious the treasures within the treasure caves. Having gone through 9 terrible crises and massacres in the first stage of the life and death road, Yi-chun had come to realize just how perilous these checkpoints were, with the slightest carelessness leading to possible downfall. With the beginning of the second stage of the life and death road imminent, Yi-chun naturally didn't dare to let his guard down or be distracted. The first stage of the life and death road was the Desert of Death checkpoint, where the vast desert concealed various dangerous death traps. It remains to be seen what dangers the second stage of the life and death road holds. Yi-chun looked up seriously to observe the new environment of the second stage of the life and death road he was just transported into, and scrutinized the directional guidance on the treasure cave key. After a long moment, Yi-chun took his first steps forward on this new journey of the life and death road. The second stage of the life and death road did not prohibit flying. However, Yi-chun didn't dare to fly at high speed in here, but moved forward carefully, inch by inch, and used instant spatial shifts with great caution. After flying over 6 or 7 miles, Yi-chun stopped in front of a green arc of light, his expression finally turning grave. The green arc before him was hidden about 15 or 16 yards high in the void, a 3-yard-long arc of light, looking much like a bridge of light in the void, seemingly dazzlingly beautiful. But Yi-chun found not the slightest beauty in this arc of light. That's because, when he passed the first arc of light earlier, Bing Shi from the 9 Ice Guardians had alarmingly pointed out a yellow arc of light that was over 8 yards long to Yi-chun, informing him of its danger. At that time, Yi-chun learned that these arcs of light were none other than a deadly luminescence known as primordial divine light. According to Bing Shi, this primordial divine light could only be refined by mighty beings above the true God of 6 tribulations. This divine light could take various colors and shapes, even transforming into bizarre sudden bursts of light beams, and was often used to protect the forbidden treasure lands of true gods. The strength of the primordial divine light's arcs and beams varied. The weaker ones could kill those in the Spirit Sea realm and the rotating pill realm, and the stronger ones could even kill true gods below 6 tribulations. What terrified everyone the most was that no one knew where the primordial divine light was hidden or when it would appear. If one inadvertently encountered a concealed, powerful primordial divine light, they would likely be slain before they could react. When Bing Shi pointed out the first yellow arc of primordial divine light, Yi-chun had vaguely guessed that the death threats within the second life and death path were probably from these divine lights. After traveling 6 or 7 miles and encountering 8 different colored and different shaped arcs, Yi-chun became even more certain of his conjecture. The real danger indeed came from this primordial divine light. Although Yi-chun had not yet encountered any truly terrifying primordial divine light, the newly emerged green arc alone, as Bing Shi had informed him, could instantly kill even a late-stage heavenly saint if touched unintentionally. This naturally put Yi-chun on high alert. These were only the primordial divine lights he could see and detect. Yi-chun had no way of knowing whether he would encounter any concealed ones that were extremely difficult to detect, or any that could move and kill unexpectedly, or even ones that could kill true god-level experts. If he carelessly stumbled upon one without a way to defend or without noticing, he would absolutely take a nasty fall and might even lose his life. While facing these primordial divine lights and being extremely cautious, Yi-chun continued to fly forward. In the second segment of the path of life and death, several other people were also on edge because of these primordial divine lights. About 3,000 miles away from Yichen's position, in a certain territory, two late-stage heavenly saints, one fat and one thin, who had entered the divine heritage cave were watching a blue ray suddenly shoot out 3 yards in front of them and halted in their tracks. Primordial divine light. This second segment's life and death path, the primordial divine light challenge, is indeed more dangerous than the first. Had we not cultivated the destruction eye skills, we would not have noticed the hidden arc of light ahead, and that sudden blue ray would have surely killed us. The eyes of these two late-stage heavenly saints were simultaneously covered by a strange pale gray light, which allowed them to see many hidden spatial fissures and beams of light in the air that other martial artists could not see through the pale gray light. This peculiar mystical power enveloping their eyes with pale gray light was the special magical ability Destruction Divine Eye that the two heavenly saints had cultivated. Destruction Divine Eye. The destruction aspect allowed them to perceive many hidden things such as martial artists concealing themselves, hidden traps, and lethal lights like the ones they currently faced. The extinguish aspect was a powerful divine eye offensive technique, an attack spell that could directly shoot rays from the divine eye to obliterate an opponent's divine soul. As Yi Chun had guessed when he encountered these two very different-looking late-stage heavenly saints in the divine transmission hall, they indeed knew each other and had cultivated the same techniques. After being separated by being transported into the path of life and death, they managed to reunite. It was by using the destruction eye skills that these two had made it through more than half of the second segment of the life and death path, narrowly avoiding several lethal primordial divine light attacks. Elsewhere, a green snake that was swimming through the air was struck by a green ray of light and instantly burst into surges of genuine chi before transforming into a green flute. At the same time, a young figure flew out directly from the green flute. This young figure was none other than Ding Xiaojia, the young master from the 9-star palace of the Jumong continent. Ding Xiaojia looked at the green ray that had disappeared in an instant, his face paling. This ray is too terrifying. It almost breached the defenses of my artifact, the green spirit flute. The green spirit flute is a lower-tier divine artifact. With the green spirit flute, I managed to smoothly get through the first segment of the life and death path without facing any real threats. I didn't expect that after being hit by 5 divine lights and divine arcs, my green spirit flute is almost unable to withstand anymore. And even the divine jade powering the green spirit flute has been depleted by half after just that momentary attack. I don't have much divine jade left, and if it continues like this, I fear that after 2 more such blasts, my green spirit flute won't be able to defend at all. With such a long way still to go on this second segment of the life and death path, what should I do? What should I do? Ding Xiaojia looked at the green flute in his hand and then at the still far-off end of the second segment of the life and death path, no longer daring to proceed. Chapter 451 Extreme Flash. The second segment of the path of life and death where Yi Chun was flying. Just as Ding Xiaojia hesitated, not daring to move forward, Yi Chun also encountered his first brush with death on the second segment of the path of life and death. 20-some li into his flight on the second segment of the path of life and death. Suddenly, a stream of purple primordial divine light appeared out of nowhere and brutally struck at Yi Chun, who was carefully navigating the skies. While flying, Yi Chun had already spread the defensive mist of the purple mist true garment around a radius of 10 zhong from his body, always alert for any unusual movements in his surroundings. What Yi Chun was specifically on guard for were those unexposed bursts of primordial divine light that could suddenly assault him. When this stream of purple primordial divine light appeared out of thin air and abruptly attacked, it pierced through the defense of the purple mist true garment in an instant. Yi Chun, who was always on guard, tensed to the extreme in a split second. The purple mist true garment, a lower-grade divine artifact for defense, was unable to block the blow from the purple primordial divine light. When the primordial divine light broke through the purple mist true garment's defense, attacking right in front of Yi Chun, it was already too late for him to escape. There was only one method left for him to use. Whoosh! In an instant, Yi Chun, who was flying through the air, suddenly disappeared, and the entire void was left with only a snow-white jade pendant hanging in midair. This snow-white jade pendant was none other than the Ice Snow Jade Pendant containing 9 Ice Guardians. The Ice Snow Jade Pendant, a legacy of the Ice King, was a superior-grade divine artifact. Faced with the unstoppable and unevadable purple, primordial divine light, Yichun had no choice but to rely on the Ice Snow Jade Pendant to resist. Initially, in these 3 great unknown territories full of mystery, Yichun was reluctant to expose the powerful treasure he possessed, the Ice Snow Jade Pendant. However, now facing a life-and-death crisis with no other means of defense, Yichun had no choice but to use it. The moment Yichun entered into the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, the purple primordial divine light struck the pendant a moment later. The purple primordial divine light, which the purple mist true garment couldn't defend against at all, was obliterated the instant it touched the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, leaving not even the slightest scratch. As the purple primordial divine light was extinguished and tranquility returned to heaven and earth, Yichun emerged from the Ice Snow Jade Pendant once again, noting that the pendant was completely undamaged, which left him with a deep sense of relief. Superior-grade divine artifact, indeed it is. Without great fortune, such treasures could only be possessed by mighty deities or kings who have survived the 8 or 9 tribulations. The Ice Snow Jade Pendant is merely a superior-grade spatial divine artifact, and its defensive capability is so powerful. If it were a superior-grade offensive divine artifact, perhaps traversing these 3 great territories wouldn't be an exaggeration. After reflecting, Yichun shook his head with a smile. Having obtained a superior-grade spatial divine artifact left by a divine king was already an incredibly lucky feat. Let alone fantasizing about a superior-grade offensive divine artifact was indeed too much to hope for. Yichun's gaze returned to the immeasurable stretch of the second segment of the path of life and death that laid ahead. This segment of the passage, the primordial divine light, is truly unavoidable. I fear only those with great strength or powerful divine arts can make it through this path of life and death. With my current mid-rotating pill cultivation and several divine arts not fully mastered, relying on my own strength to make it through is somewhat beyond me. Since the Ice Snow Jade Pendant has been used, let's continue with this artifact until the end of this path of life and death before putting it away. With that thought, Yichun stopped wasting time. With a determination of his mind, he flew back into the Ice Snow Jade Pendant. The next moment, the palm-sized chunk of snow-white jade pendant transformed into a point of sparkling light and bolted forward at an inconceivable speed along the path of life and death. Now that he was truly utilizing a superior-grade divine artifact, Yichun had enough confidence that the defenses of a superior-grade divine artifact could not be breached by anything in these 3 great territories, not even the primordial divine light from the 5 elements mountain level. No matter how formidable those primordial divine light bursts were, they could not penetrate the Ice Snow Jade Pendant. In such a scenario, Yichun certainly wouldn't continue flying cautiously. His speed surged tremendously. In just a short time, Yichun had already rocketed hundreds of li. During this process, the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, which had transformed into a point of glistening light, encountered several more attacks from primordial divine light. As a result, the majority of the primordial divine light didn't even manage to strike the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, instantly being deflected by it. Even the minimal amount of the primordial divine light that did hit the pendant was immediately extinguished by it, without the Ice Snow Jade Pendant's speed being reduced in the slightest. Seeing this situation, Yichun now had absolute confidence that he could pass through this second segment of the path of life and death. Whoosh! A point of brilliant light twinkled intensely as it glided through the second segment of the path of life and death. No one knew that within this light hid Yichun, as well as 9 great icebound guards. Nor did they know that this point of brilliant light was in fact transformed from a superior space divine artifact. The point darted about. The point twinkled intensely. Within the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, Yichun felt the peculiar sensation of flight, the special feeling of traveling through the path of life and death, and in that moment he had an epiphany. The path of life and death is only such in the face of the weak. To the powerful, this so-called path of life and death might be as insignificant as the flight of the ice-snow jade pendant, leisurely ignored and instantly traversed. On one side was the nerve-wracking, cautious flight, and on the other a sudden sense of security. This contrast gave Yi Chun, in the midst of his epiphany inside the ice-snow jade pendant, a surge of qi within his body. Within the qi sea, shrouded by the starry mist, the 372 5-apertures rotating pills experienced a sudden increase of 24 during this moment of epiphany, leaping to 396. Epiphanies are encountered by chance, not sought after. Yi Chun never expected to have such a momentary epiphany in the middle of this second segment of the path of life and death. Of course, the epiphany was fleeting. Yi Chun could no longer enter that strange state which caused his 5-apertures rotating pills to surge in a blink, induced by stellar mist. Seeing that he couldn't re-enter this peculiar state, Yi Chun simply smiled. He continued forward on the second segment of the path of life and death, controlling the flight of the ice-snow jade pendant while looking around. Even without an epiphany, experiencing this path of life and death was quite the feeling indeed. Tens of miles ahead of Yi Chun, Ding Xiaojia stood still with an incredibly troubled expression, his teleportation having placed him right in Yi Chun's path. What to do? What to do? Neither advancing nor retreating is an option. Could it be that I, Ding Xiaojia, will perish in this second segment of the path of life and death? Ding Xiaojia had already been bombarded several times by the primordial divine light, and dared not continue onwards through this second segment of the path of life and death. But staying within this segment of the path of life and death meant that once time was up, he would be directly annihilated by the divine heritage cave. In desperation, Ding Xiaojia once again activated the green spirit flute to venture forward. But then, just before, a sudden blast of the primordial divine light struck the green spirit flute, creating 3 fissures and draining the divine jade that powered the flute in a moment of defense. This unexpected turn of events terrified Ding Xiaojia to the point where he dared not take another step forward. Ding Xiaojia had already been in that place for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. His complexion grew paler and uglier by the minute, but without the protection of the green spirit flute, he dared not move at all. Ding Xiaojia was filled with regret for not heeding his father's advice, insisting on bringing many treasures to challenge 5 Elements Mountain, to this divine heritage cave. Just as Ding Xiaojia was losing hope, he suddenly saw an extremely bright point of light speeding towards him. Ding Xiaojia instinctively tried to dodge, but found that the ultimate point of light stopped abruptly when it was just over 3 feet in front of him, and then a young figure flew out from the point of light. Upon seeing this young figure, Ding Xiaojia exclaimed in shock. This youth was none other than Yi Chun, who had entered the divine heritage cave just before him. Who else could it be? Chapter 452 9 Sun's Spirit Ginseng. Yi Chun, how dare you fly so quickly on this second segment of the life and death trial? The beams of death and the terrifying arcs of light here are incredibly powerful. A single misstep could get you killed by those beams or arcs, completely annihilating you. Ding Xiaojia watched Yi Chun with utter astonishment. He was not only surprised at Yi Chun's sudden appearance but also that Yi Chun's speed as he flew towards him was incredibly fast, apparently unconcerned by the life and death trial's mysterious death beams and terrifying arcs of light. Ding Xiaojia possessed the artifact, Green Spirit Flute, but even he didn't dare to fly like that. Could it be that he has an even more powerful artifact than mine, which is why he's not afraid of the death beams? Ding Xiaojia gazed at the point of ultimate radiance Yi Chun had flown out from, unable to discern what that point of ultimate light was. Seeing Ding Xiaojia's shocked expression, Yi Chun offered a faint smile. The ice-snow jade pendant had transformed into a point of ultimate light, so of course, Ding Xiaojia couldn't see its true form. Originally, Yi Chun hadn't expected to encounter Ding Xiaojia, the young noble of the 9-star palace from the Jumong continent, since after entering the divine heritage cave, he hadn't encountered any other treasure seekers. As for people like Huameyer, Three-Eyed Skeleton, and Jin Liang, Yi Chun had no idea which part of the divine heritage cave they had reached by now. Chancing upon Ding Xiaojia on this second segment of the life and death trial, Yi Chun naturally couldn't help but pay attention, wanting to see how Ding Xiaojia was managing the trial. And he saw Ding Xiaojia trapped on the road, his face a picture of despair. Clearly, Ding Xiaojia was completely stuck at this second segment of the life and death trial, not daring to proceed. Seeing Ding Xiaojia in such a state, Yi Chun would naturally not stand by and watch him die if he was capable of safely passing the trial. So, he drove the ice snow jade pendant directly in front of Ding Xiaojia. Let down your guard. I'll take you into my spatial artifact and get you out of this second segment of the life and death trial. After a smile, Yi Chun spoke directly to Ding Xiaojia. Take me out. Ding Xiaojia was startled upon hearing Yi Chen's words. Then, Ding Xiaojia became incredibly excited. From Yi Chen's incredibly fast flying speed and his indifferent demeanor towards the second segment of the life and death trial, Ding Xiaojia knew that Yi Chun must have the absolute confidence to pass through this part of the trial. Otherwise, Yi Chun would not be so indifferent, nor would he offer to take him out. And with Ding Xiaojia's green spirit flute damaged, and his divine jade exhausted, he had entered a state of despair. As time passed, his death seemed certain. So, Yi Chen's willingness to save him was exceedingly exciting. What Ding Xiaojia found even more incredible was Yi Chen's unhesitating assistance. As the three-eyed skeleton had said when they first entered the Divine Heritage Cave, many treasure seekers did not care about the life or death of others. Some even hoped that more treasure seekers died, so that their chances of obtaining treasures would be greater. There were even those who dealt lethal blows to other treasure seekers. In light of that, Yi Chen's assistance seemed incredibly precious. Yi Chen, do you really want to take me with you? Ding Xiaojia looked at Yi Chun and asked again with some uncertainty. Seeing Yi Chun nod his head again, Ding Xiaojia did not hesitate and nodded repeatedly. All right, Yi Chun, thank you for saving me. Otherwise, I might have perished in this second segment of the life and death road. If I can safely pass this trial this time, I will head straight for the safe area in the second treasure site and wait to be teleported out when the time comes. I definitely won't seek treasures in the cave any longer. Nor will I be led by the treasure cave key to an even more dangerous third segment of the life and death trial. Ding Xiaojia had grown exceedingly fearful of the three segments of the life and death trial in the Divine Heritage Cave. Having struggled through two segments, he had come to realize that this transformed Divine Heritage Cave was no longer something he could venture in. If the second segment of the life and death trial was this terrifying, then the even more dangerous third segment was certainly not a place he'd dare to enter. Watching Ding Xiaojia repeatedly nod his head and let down his guard, Yi Chun used his divine sense to envelop Ding Xiaojia, directly drawing him into the ice snow jade pendant. And then Yi Chun also flew into the ice snow jade pendant. Afterward, the ice snow jade pendant continued as a point of ultimate light, flying towards the end of the second segment of the life and death trial. Inside the ice snow jade pendant, Ding Xiaojia watched as the strange spatial artifact carried him at high speed through the second segment of the life and death trial, and when he saw that the countless beams of death that had previously terrified him into immobility were completely ineffective against the strange artifact space, his gaze towards Yi Chun was filled with amazement. He knew that he had truly been rescued. An hour later, Yi Chun stood amidst the green mountains and waters, identical to the first treasure land he had encountered. This new realm was precisely the second treasure land that lay beyond the path of life and death. The treasures hidden within this second treasure land were even more precious than those in the first. At this moment, Ding Xiaojia, with the help of the ice snow jade pendant, Yi Chun and Ding Xiaojia had successfully passed through the second section of the life and death pathway. True to his earlier words, Ding Xiaojia no longer dared to search for treasures in this second land and had promptly headed to a safe area. Within the Divine Heritage Cave, all three treasure lands had safe zones. Those who were not confident enough to continue exploring the Divine Heritage Cave would opt for the safe zones, to avoid being transported to more perilous areas. After Ding Xiaojia's departure, Yi Chun found himself in possession of a map. The map was what Ding Xiaojia had given to Yi Chun before he left. According to Ding Xiaojia, his purpose for coming to the Divine Heritage Cave initially revolved around the treasure indicated on this map. However, during the challenges of the second life and death section, he realized the danger of treasure hunting here and decided to give up. After all, Ding Xiaojia was not confident enough that he could obtain the treasure. If he wasted any more time searching for the treasure and got sent to the third segment of the life and death pathway, he might lose his life in the Divine Heritage Cave. To repay Yi Chun for saving his life, Ding Xiaojia simply gifted the treasure-hunting map to Yi Chun. After all, no treasure is more precious than the grace of being saved. As Yi Chun took the map, he saw that it marked a treasure cave located within a lake in this second treasure land. The treasure within the cave was called the Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng, an incredible item with significant benefits for strengthening the divine soul. Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng? A miraculous treasure that strengthens the divine soul. Strengthening the divine soul greatly aids in comprehending cultivation techniques and hastening one's cultivation progress. Such a treasure was indeed rare. Yi Chun glanced at the map and nodded lightly before vanishing from the spot. 2 hours later, Yi Chun appeared at the bottom of the lake indicated on the map. With qi protecting his body, Yi Chun saw a large cave revealed within a mound at the lake's bottom. Entering the cave, one could see a dirt path stretching downward inside, winding deep below. Strangely enough, upon entering the cave, the surrounding lake water seemed to be segregated, not allowing a single drop into the passageway. There is indeed a passage hidden under the lake. It seems Ding Xiaojia's map is indeed accurate. Although the treasure-hunting location was not dangerous, Yi Chun remained cautious as he proceeded through the underground passage. After traveling for roughly 20 li along the passage and reaching an unknown depth, Yi Chun suddenly saw brightness ahead, and a round exit appeared. Yi Chun's face shifted in an instant, and he quickened his pace towards the exit. Upon reaching the exit, Yi Chun discovered another space hidden within. He saw a long bridge within this space, stretching from the ground towards the sky, where a floating palace hovered above the void. Apart from the bridge and palace, every other area in this space was completely empty. Mere sight of the strange space hidden at the depths of the lake's passage and a floating palace in the void above made Yi Chun realize that this was indeed a secret treasure haven within the second treasure land. Subsequently, Yi Chun stepped onto the bridge and began walking towards the floating palace. Once inside the palace, Yi Chun found that the grand hall contained 10 white jade pedestals. Each of these pedestals was enveloped in an enchantment barrier, with each barrier being a dense white, making it impossible to see what was inside. Furthermore, next to these 10 white jade pedestals stood a white jade pillar of treasures. Written on the pillar were the instructions for claiming treasures in the palace. Chapter 453, Retrieving the Treasure. Yi Chun looked at the instructions for obtaining the treasure. He saw that it read, "This hall is known as the Soul Treasure Hall, containing 10 soul-nurturing spirit treasures of immense importance to cultivating the divine soul, the Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng. These 10 Nine Suns Spirit Ginsengs vary in preciousness. The least valuable is a 300-year-old Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng, while the most precious is one that is 10,000 years old. A 300-year-old Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng is only sufficient for martial artists at the rotating pill realm to nourish their divine souls, whereas a 10,000-year-old Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng is even fit for the use of those at the Four Tribulations True God level. Even for those of lower realms, obtaining it can suffice until they reach the Four Tribulations True God tier. As for the rules of obtaining treasures here, under the cover of the protective enchantments, no one knows which platform has the most valuable Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng. Each treasure hunter in the Soul Treasure Hall only has one chance to choose a platform and take a treasure, which can only be accessed with the treasure cave key to activate the treasure's protective enchantments. Once this is done, no other platform's treasures can be taken. Each time the Divine Heritage Cave opens, the 10 treasures inside are regenerated. However, if the treasure on the platform you've chosen has already been taken by another treasure hunter in the current opening of the Divine Heritage Cave, then your chance to take a treasure will be directly wasted. Furthermore, even if the treasure remains, if you cannot break the protective enchantments around it, it will also be unattainable. There is only a quarter of an hour to break these enchantments, and if this time is exceeded, the opportunity to take a treasure is likewise lost. Whether or not you can get the treasure you desire will depend on your luck and strength. After reading the instructions on the stone pillar, Yi Chen's eyes returned to the protective enchantments above the 10 jade platforms. So you need both luck and strength to obtain the 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng here? Indeed, as the instructions say, if one is unlucky and the treasure on the chosen platform has already been taken by someone else, then the single chance to obtain a treasure would be squandered, which is certainly very unfortunate. Strength is also important. Even if you pick the most valuable 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng, if you don't have the strength to break the protective enchantments around it, it would all be in vain. Of the 10 9 Suns Spirit Ginsengs, of course the 10,000-year-old one is the most precious. Everyone wants to obtain that ginseng because, once acquired, it can be used up to the 4 tribulations true god level. But with the protective enchantments a hazy white, there is no way to tell which platform holds the most precious ginseng. Yi Chun paced outside the 10 jade platforms, observing them while figuring out a way to obtain the most valuable 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng. However, to his disappointment, the 10 jade platforms were identical, even down to the appearance of the protective enchantments on them, making it impossible to discern any differences. And when he extended his divine sense toward these enchantments, his divine sense was repelled the instant it touched them. Even when he summoned his 9 icebound guards, the most powerful among them, Bing Shi, was unable to identify which platform contained the most precious 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng. In the end, Yi Chun could only sigh. The one who left this divine heritage cave behind must have been a great and formidable being. There's even a legacy for 4 tribulations true gods here. The strength of this being must far surpass that of a 4 tribulations true god. Their protective measures are not something we who have yet to reach the true god level could break through. Could it be that this time, we really have to rely on luck and just randomly pick any platform? With no choice left, Yi Chun paced once more around the 10 jade platforms before making a decision. I might as well just randomly choose a platform, he finally decided. After all, this 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng clue was given by Ding Xiaojia, so obtaining any one of them is an unexpected gain. There's also only 1 day to hunt for treasures in this second treasure location. I can't afford to waste any more time here. Feeling the urgency and with no more hesitation, Yi Chun made up his mind to choose a platform and went straight toward the one closest to him. This platform was the second one among the 10. I don't hope for the most precious 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng on this platform. I just wish that it hasn't been taken. After standing next to the platform, Yi Chun took out the treasure cave key and, following the instructions on the pillar, lightly touched the protective enchantment with it. Whoosh! 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 Instantly, the white haze within the enchantment began to flash and fade rapidly, gradually revealing the contents inside the protective enchantment. As the white haze started to dissipate, Yi Chen's heart rose in anticipation. Has the treasure inside been taken? How many years does the 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng here account for? Yi Chun was both nervous and expectant. As the white, misty light began to dissipate by half, Yi Chun discovered that a small section of a spirit ginseng had been revealed. On the stone platform, 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng was present, and it had not been taken by anyone else. Yi Chun felt an immense relief in his heart. As long as there was something, even the lowest grade 300-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng would be useful to him now in the rotating pill realm. And when the white, misty light had completely vanished, Yi Chun grew even more excited because he found that as the light completely dispersed, there appeared a golden spirit ginseng as thick as an infant's arm and over 3 feet long, with 9 green leaves growing on it. At the same time, a voice echoed, "The 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng on this stone platform is a 10,000-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng. You have 15 minutes to break the enchantment barrier and claim this treasure. A 10,000-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng. Could it be sufficient for a 4 tribulations true god to use?" Yi Chun had not expected that the stone platform he had chosen at random would contain the most precious one out of the 10 9 Suns Spirit Ginsengs. Could it be that, after almost leaving the first treasure site empty-handed, my luck has finally turned around in this second treasure site? Yi Chun said with a smile. However, he soon suppressed his excitement and his expression turned serious again. Although the most precious 10,000-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng had been revealed on the stone platform, The enchantment barrier on the outside was not yet broken, and he only had 15 minutes to break through and claim the treasure. If he couldn't break through, the joy could very well turn into sorrow when the time was up. Looking at the enchantment barrier around the Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng, Yi-chan took a deep breath. Then, in an instant, the 396 mid-rotating pill realm pellets within him shone brightly, and at the same time, an extreme golden light appeared in Yi-chan's hand. The golden light divine slash from the 5 great divine arts. Boom! When Yi-chan unleashed the golden light divine slash, the supreme golden light directly struck the enchantment barrier. Yet, even a move that could kill many mid-stage heavenly saints on the spot didn't leave a mark on this enchantment barrier. Could it be that, because this Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng is the most precious, the barrier protecting it is also the strongest? As the minutes to break the enchantment swiftly ticked by, Yi-chan couldn't afford to ponder any longer. In an instant, he made a move, and his life-bound flying sword, Crimson Fire, soared into action. Whoosh! 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 Yi-chan pinched the spell in his hand, and the flying sword emitted a crisp sword chant. At the same time, the power from his 5 great divine arts, along with the foundation power of the 810 stances from Icebound Divine Body, and the might of the great 5 elements Sword Light Divine Art, all burst into the Crimson Fire flying sword. Yi-chan was ready to use his most powerful move to break the barrier. If he couldn't break it, he would have to let the 9 Icebound Guardians try, or else stimulate the True God Talisman and borrow the power of a True God to break the enchantment. Zoom! When Yi-chan had gathered all the divine arts into the Crimson Fire flying sword, it thunderously flew towards the barrier, and Yi-chan's eyes were tightly fixed on the collision between the flying sword and the barrier. The next moment, the Crimson Fire flying sword struck the enchantment barrier directly. Then, to Yi-chan's immense joy, a crack sound came, and this time, with the combined force of the divine arts and the unleashed flying sword, the enchantment barrier finally burst. Crack, crack, crack. And once the cracks started to appear, the sound of breaking grew louder, until at last, countless fractures covered the entire barrier, and it turned into a stream of light that boomed and disappeared without a trace. After the enchantment barrier vanished, within its confines, on top of the stone platform, the 10,000-year Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng appeared right before Yi-chan. Chapter 454. Going Crazy. Looking at the golden Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng on the stone platform, as thick as a baby's arm and over 3 feet long, Yi-chan's heart pounded furiously. He directly picked up the Spirit Ginseng. Success. Yi-chan had not expected that, under the simultaneous assault of the Crimson Fire, flying sword and several divine arts, he eventually succeeded in breaking the prohibitive light shield surrounding the stone platform, obtaining the most precious Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng. This Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng was extremely heavy to hold. It should be noted that Yi-chan's combat strength had reached the level almost of a late-stage heavenly saint existence. Even objects weighing thousands or hundreds of thousands of pounds could be effortlessly lifted by Yi-chan amid the sweep of his mighty chi. But this 10,000-year-old Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng, despite being only a little over 3 feet long, truly felt in Yi-chan's hands as if he was grasping a colossal mountain. Although small in size, the ginseng likely weighed more than 10 million caddies. It was hard to imagine what immense energy was contained within this small spirit ginseng. The entirety of the spirit ginseng's energy did not leak out at all. It was only when Yi-chan touched the inside of the spirit ginseng with his divine sense that he felt an exceedingly warm sensation being transmitted into his divine sense. This sensation was as if his divine sense had been immersed in warm seawater, and merely by briefly touching it, Yi-chan's divine sense began to grow rapidly. Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng, the legendary treasure that nourishes the soul, truly lives up to its reputation, he exclaimed. Without even using it, but merely by touching it briefly, Yi-chan caught a glimpse of the marvel of this most precious 10,000-year-old Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng. After taking another deep look at the Spirit Ginseng, Yi-chan placed it inside the ice snow jade pendant. Then, Yi-chan saw that as he put away the Nine Suns Spirit Ginseng, The prohibitive light shield that he had broken around the stone platform where the ginseng had been flew out again and once more covered the stone platform. The entire stone platform returned to its original state, as if the treasure inside had never been taken. Seeing not just this platform, but the other 9 stone platforms revert to their original state, Yichen mused. These 10 stone platforms, true to the treasure retrieval rules mentioned, whether the treasures had been taken by others or not, it's completely indiscernible. Luckily, my luck wasn't bad this time. Not only was the treasure on the platform I chose not taken, but I also selected the most precious 9 Suns spirit ginseng. Truly, after extreme misfortune comes great fortune. After chuckling to himself, Yichun decided not to waste any more time in this soul treasure haul. Having used his only treasure retrieval opportunity here and having obtained the 10,000-year-old 9 Sun spirit ginseng, it was time to leave and search for other treasures elsewhere. With a movement, Yichun disappeared from the soul treasure hall. Shortly after, Yichun left the strange space where the soul treasure hall was located, exited the underwater passage he had come through, flew out of the lake, and headed towards other areas of the second treasure zone. After Yichun left, the lake, the passage, and even the whole soul treasure hall returned to a state of quiet, as if no one had ever been there. However, not half an hour later, 2 people suddenly burst into the lakebed and entered the passage, heading straight for the soul treasure hall. These 2 individuals were precisely the late-stage heavenly saints, one immensely fat and the other excessively thin, the odd pair of extremes. As they rushed towards the soul treasure hall, the corpulent heavenly saint mentioned with a laugh, "Successfully cultivating the destruction eye skills this time indeed served a great purpose. It even allowed us to successfully pass the perilous second segment of the life and death path." The incredibly thin heavenly saint also smiled. "Yes, the previous time we entered the treasure hunt 100 years ago, the second segment of the path of life and death wasn't as dangerous. Destruction eye skills, worthy of being the most powerful divine art we obtained from the last visit to the Divine Heritage Cave, has a significant inhibitive effect on the restrictions and lethal mechanisms of this area. With it, we might actually be able to get our hands on that 10,000-year-old 9 Sun spirit ginseng this time." Upon hearing the incredibly thin heavenly saint mention the 10,000-year-old 9 Sun spirit ginseng, the eyes of the corpulent heavenly saint lit up with both greed and longing. "The 10,000-year-old 9 Sun spirit ginseng. Last time we failed to obtain it. The last time we stumbled upon this treasure cave beneath the lake and discovered the hidden soul treasure hall. Yet, both our 2 opportunities ended in vain, and the treasures in the stone platforms we picked were already taken by others beforehand. This time, with destruction eye skills at our disposal, a special divine art learned from the Divine Heritage Cave, capable of seeing through countless hidden places and strange divine eye abilities. It was with its help that we smoothly saw through the primordial divine light, passing the extremely dangerous second segment of the life and death path. Maybe in a moment, destruction divine light will also help us see through the prohibitive light shields of the 10 stone platforms, allowing us to choose the most precious 10,000-year-old 9 Suns spirit ginseng." With that thought, the 2 heavenly saints, too antsy to contain their excitement, shot towards the soul treasure hall at the end of the passage with incredible speed. When they once again stood inside the soul treasure hall, looking at the 10 treasure stone platforms they had seen 100 years before, and the stone pillar with instructions for claiming the treasures, both of them took a deep breath. After 100 years, they were back in this place. Whether the divine art's destruction eye skills they had practiced for the past 100 years could see through the forbidden protective enchantments here was something they were uncertain about. After all, according to the instructions on the stone pillar, even a powerful true god might not be able to see through these protective enchantments directly. But when they had obtained the divine art's destruction eye skills in the Divine Heritage Cave, it was said that these skills could see through many hidden things and many special restrictions. The 10 treasures on the stone platforms were left by the master of the Divine Heritage Cave, and the destruction eye skills divine arts were also left by the master of these divine treasures. Perhaps this divine art was specially designed to counter the enchantments on the stone platforms. Perhaps it was a special opportunity left by the master of the divine heritage cave for treasure hunters. Thinking this, the two heavenly saints, one chubby and the other lean, couldn't help but start to execute the Destruction I skills divine arts, gazing at the 10 stone platforms. They wanted to see if the Destruction I skills, left by the master of the divine heritage cave, could indeed counter the protective enchantments left by the same master. If they could not see through them, they would have to rely on luck to choose 2 stone platforms to claim their treasures, just as before. In that case, they were likely to leave empty-handed again. When they used the Destruction I skills for the first time, a strange pale gray light emerged on their eyes. The two heavenly saints gazed through the pale gray light at the enchantments over the 10 stone platforms, and the moment they saw through them, they screamed with unspeakable surprise. Under the agitation of the light from the Destruction I skills, the white mists enveloping the 10 stone platforms were entirely penetrated, revealing the contents inside. We can see through them. It's true. Without the need for the treasure cave key to activate the enchantments, we can directly see through them. If that's the case, we should pick the most valuable 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng first, then proceed to claim the treasures. The two, overjoyed, immediately swept their gazes across the 10 stone platforms. But as they did, their voices of surprise abruptly ceased, because they discovered that of the 10 stone platforms, 9 had a 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng inside their protective enchantments. But just 1 stone platform was missing its 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng. Obviously, the Spirit Ginseng on that stone platform had already been taken. It would not have mattered if it was a less precious Spirit Ginseng that was taken, but when the two heavenly saints shifted their gaze to the remaining ginsengs, they saw that the others had only 2 or 3 verdant leaves. Some even had none at all. The most precious of the remaining 9 Spirit Ginsengs only had 6 verdant leaves. The two had specifically inquired that a true 10,000-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng would have exactly 9 verdant leaves. Someone has already taken one of the Spirit Ginsengs, and the one that was taken was the most precious 10,000-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng? The two heavenly saints were on the verge of madness. They had finally come to the Soul Treasure Hall again, and they had finally obtained the Divine Arts Destruction Divine Light, which could foresee the protective enchantments, sparing them the risk of having to choose a stone platform by chance. But the most precious 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng had been taken. If it hadn't been taken, with their methods, they would have definitely obtained that Spirit Ginseng. Now, the most valuable of the remaining Spirit Ginsengs, with 6 verdant leaves, was just a 3,000-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng, only enough for cultivating a heavenly saint's spirit. It was practically useless to them. They had come for the 10,000-year 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng. They came for that Spirit Ginseng which could even nourish the souls of 4 tribulations' true gods. How could this situation not drive them to the brink of insanity? Who was it who took the most precious 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng already? Bellowed the corpulent heavenly saint, unable to contain himself any longer. Chapter 455. The Tongming Mirror and the Pursuit. The corpulent heavenly saint in the later stages roared in fury, and the incredibly emaciated heavenly saint of the same stage also bore a gloomy countenance. He understood that the true treasure of this soul treasure hall was that 10,000-year-old 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng. All other 9 Suns Spirit Ginsengs were but mere items used by the owner of the Divine Heritage Cave to test the treasure hunter's luck and strength, to see if they could discern and obtain the truly precious item among the 10 treasures. Last time, they had all left empty-handed. This time, having barely prepared adequately, the most precious treasure had already been taken. Naturally, he felt a frenzied sense of desperation. However, this lean heavenly saint did not, like the corpulent one, vent his frustrations through roaring, but instead, with a swift movement of his hand, he summoned an ancient bronze mirror treasure into his palm. When the corpulent heavenly saint saw the ancient mirror treasure the lean one produced, it was as if he realized something, and he exclaimed with a thrill of surprise, "The Tongming Mirror! Yes, I'd forgotten Liao had such a treasure. This Tongming Mirror can reveal all events that occurred within the space in the last half an hour. I wonder how long it's been since that person took the 10,000-year-old 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng." If it was within the last half an hour, then we could use the Tongming mirror to see exactly who took the treasure. Perhaps we could get our hands on that treasure once more. Towards the end, a murderous intent stirred in the eyes of the corpulent heavenly saint. His gaze made it clear that if they found the person who took the 10,000-year-old nine-sun spirit ginseng, he wouldn't hesitate to kill them and seize the spirit ginseng. While harboring this murderous desire, the corpulent heavenly saint also felt some concern. Though miraculous, the Tongming mirror could only reveal events that happened within the last half an hour. If the person who took the treasure had left more than an hour ago, the mirror would reveal nothing. If that were the case, they would have no idea who had taken the treasure. Thinking this, the corpulent heavenly saint quickly urged the lean Liao. Quick! Quick! Liao! There's no time to lose. We can't waste a moment. Check it now. And the extremely lean heavenly saint, not needing any reminder from the corpulent one, had already activated the Tongming mirror. At that moment, the Tongming mirror was already floating in the air, emitting rings of strange light. As the strange light spread, a virtual light screen about 10 feet wide suddenly appeared in front of the mirror. The two heavenly saints, one fat and one thin, both peered into the interior of the Tongming mirror. Upon looking, the two burst into ecstatic shouts, because at that moment, the light screen brought up by the Tongming mirror showed the figure of a youth attacking the prohibition light cover on the second stone platform, trying to break the prohibition of the second platform. And the second stone platform was the only one among the 10 from which a treasure had been taken. Clearly, this youth was the one who had taken the 10,000-year-old nine-sun spirit ginseng. It's him. He's the one who took the spirit ginseng. I remember him. He's the young man who came with us to the Divine Heritage Cave this time, the youth in the light screen of the Tongming mirror, who had just taken the 10,000-year-old nine-sun spirit ginseng, was none other than Yi Chun. Looking into the light screen produced by the mirror, they could see Yi Chun attacking once without breaking the prohibition light cover. But on the second attempt, his attacks greatly intensified, and he broke the light cover directly, revealing the 10,000-year-old nine-sun spirit ginseng with 9 green leaves in front of Yi Chun. Then, the two heavenly saints watched as Yi Chun picked up the nine-sun spirit ginseng and saw the stone platform return to its original state. When he saw Yi Chun fly out of the Soul Treasure Hall with the 10,000-year nine-sun spirit ginseng, a murderous intent blazed in the eyes of the two heavenly saints. Chase after that youth. We must seize back the most precious nine suns spirit ginseng. Although Yi Chen's final explosive sword technique that shattered the prohibition light cover made the two heavenly saints' pupils contract, they had not expected that Yi Chen, a youth at the midpoint of revolving core stage, could possess such formidable combat power. But they were even less willing to give up the 10,000-year nine suns spirit ginseng, which even a 4 tribulations true god could use, because of Yi Chen's powerful combat capabilities. Their own techniques were equally powerful. As for Yi Chen's flying sword attack, it had only surprised them because of Yi Chen's comparative realm. They were not at all worried if they had to face it head-on. Once activated, the Tongming mirror can only be used for an hour. After an hour, the Tongming mirror will fall into dormancy and can only be used again after a full day. We only have an hour to chase after this youth. Chase. He must still be within this second treasure area. At this point, the remarkably gaunt heavenly saint at the later stages took out the ancient copper mirror, known as the Tongming mirror, and spun it, and Yi Chen's figure appeared within the mirror. Then, the mirror directly projected a trajectory outwards, shooting forward. This trajectory was precisely the path Yi Chen had taken when leaving the Soul Treasure Hall. This wondrous power was indeed the second divine ability of the Tongming mirror, the tracking divine might. The ability to display spatial movements from the last half hour, combined with tracking, made the Tongming mirror a truly formidable searching treasure. If Yi Chen knew about the Tongming mirror's origin, he would be astounded. This mirror was an extremely well-known entity even among lower-grade divine instruments meant for assistance. Unexpectedly, the remarkably gaunt heavenly saint at the later stages had such a treasure in his possession. Whoosh! Whoosh! Following the trajectory shot out by the activated Tongming mirror, the plump and thin heavenly saints at the later stages also took off, following the projection from the mirror as they flew forward. And not unworthily so, the Tongming mirror, a famous auxiliary divine instrument, was spot on in the direction it took for chase, tracking the exact route Yi Chun had previously taken when leaving. Whether it was Yi Chun passing through corridors, leaving the lake, or even the trail towards the eastern part of the second treasure area, it was all identical. At this moment, Yi Chun, unaware that the plump and thin heavenly saints were behind him by a slight half-hour, was tracking him with the wondrous Tongming mirror. He was also unaware of the resolve in the two heavenly saints to seize the 10,000-year Nine Suns spirit ginseng he had just acquired, and the murderous intent they harbored to kill for treasure. At this time, Yi Chun, several hundred miles away from the plump and thin heavenly saints, was in a mountain depression. Yi Chun was examining a small green copper piece in this depression. This small green copper piece was what Yi Chun had purposely bought at the auction in the Sand Sea Palace to obtain that odd wooden plaque inscribed with the character illusion, which helped in finding Wood Element's secret treasures. As Yi Chun flew over this depression, he sensed the presence of a treasure within it. At the same time, the small green copper piece he carried lit up with a bright glow. Instantaneously, Yi Chun knew that the treasure he had sensed could likely be a Wood Element secret treasure detected by this green copper piece. Yi Chun had never expected the small piece of green copper he had reluctantly bought for the illusion wooden plaque to be of some use. Holding the green copper piece, Yi Chun relied on his own senses, as well as those of the copper piece, to search for the potentially hidden treasure or divine heritage cave within this depression. Yi Chun was still searching for the treasure. Meanwhile, the plump and thin heavenly saints, guided by the Tongming mirror, were drawing closer and closer to Yi Chun. Chapter 456 Heavenly Wood Puppet. I never expected that this seemingly ordinary mountain hollow would hide treasures inside. After searching around the hollow for a while, Yi Chun, through his own sensing and the help of the greenish copper piece in his hand, finally pinpointed the direction of the treasure's aura. In a flash, Yi Chun burst forth, flying deeper into the hollow, and after a dozen breaths, he stopped beside a large tree at the very end of the hollow. This large tree. Yi Chun scrutinized the towering tree before him, which was dozens of feet tall with luxuriant branches and leaves. He circled around it, and eventually he still came to a stop in front of this large tree. The aura of the treasure is most concentrated here at this large tree, weaker everywhere else. Could it be that the treasure is hidden inside this tree? Watching the greenish copper piece in his hand turn into a dazzling green light as he neared the tree, Yi Chun fell into deep thought. Then, in an instant, a blinding golden light appeared in Yi Chun's hand, which was unmistakably one of the 5 great divine arts, the Golden Light Divine Slash. With a boom, Yi Chun flicked his finger fiercely, and the Golden Light Divine Slash's killing power directly cleaved towards the large tree. Then something astounding happened. As soon as the Golden Light Divine Slash touched the tree, waves of strange air fluctuations came from the area it struck. Amid the powerful surge of the Divine Slash, these air fluctuations violently boiled and suddenly expanded outward in all directions. The large tree Yi Chun had slashed at was instantly enveloped by the violently boiling air, and then, with a thunderous bang, the tree tens of feet tall vanished into thin air, leaving behind an entrance to a treasure cave about 30 feet in circumference directly in front of Yi Chun. The large tree disappeared, revealing the entrance to the treasure cave. Looking at this, the previous tree was evidently a sort of illusionary enchantment, and by breaking it, the true form of the actual treasure cave was revealed. Seeing the entrance to the treasure cave emerge, Yi Chun allowed himself a slight smile. Indeed, the large tree was concealing an enchantment, and inside it was the entrance to a treasure cave. Fortunately, when I was in the forbidden ancient lands, I had experienced breaking this kind of enchantment that concealed secret entrances. Otherwise, I might have been fooled by the tree's illusion. Yi Chun's figure burst forward, shooting into the interior of the treasure cave entrance. Within the entrance of the treasure cave was a small space, thousands of feet across. Yi Chun took in the entire space at a glance. He only saw that in the middle of this space was a small earthen platform, and on the platform rested a small green box glowing with a phosphorescent green light. This treasure cave space is so small. It seems the treasure here might not be that precious, probably not reaching the value of the void sky quintessence fruit I encountered in the forbidden ancient lands. Although he had a premonition that the treasure might not be very precious, Yi Chun was not the least bit disheartened. Even if it wasn't extremely valuable, the treasure could still be of the saint grade, which would be greatly useful to him. And based on the sensing from the greenish copper piece, it was likely a wood element secret treasure. Yi Chun cultivated the 5 great divine arts, and for the wood attribute divine art, he needed to absorb and refine wood element secret treasures. Even a saint grade wood element secret treasure would be very useful to him. Moreover, this was the first treasure cave Yi Chun had found on his own. Unlike the previously discovered ant-mutated bug egg treasure cave in the dirt mound or the lakebed treasure cave with the 9 sun spirit ginseng, which were discovered through clues from the 3-eyed skeleton and Ding Xiaojia. Just the existence of a treasure within this first treasure cave he had found made Yi Chun very happy. It represented a promising start. The day's treasure hunt was far from over, and who knew, perhaps at this second treasure site, he might find a significant haul. Yi Chun looked at the small box on the earthen platform radiating phosphorescent green light and stepped towards it. When Yi Chun approached the small platform, 10 feet away, a voice suddenly transmitted, "Treasure hunter, do not come within 3 feet of this treasure, or you will face my attack. If you really want to obtain it, you must kill me first. Of course, if you wish to take the treasure but are not strong enough and are defeated by me, this treasure cave will expel you directly, and you will no longer be allowed to enter here. If you don't have the strength, then leave early." As the voice echoed, a wood puppet over 30 feet tall, covered in green vines, suddenly appeared in front of the small earthen platform. A guardian puppet? Yi Chun looked at the wood puppet, sensing that it exuded the aura of a late-stage heavenly saint level. This wood puppet did not attack Yi Chun immediately but rather prevented him from getting close to the treasure. Only by approaching within 3 feet of the treasure would it trigger the wood puppet's attack. Yi Chun could see the situation clearly. This wood puppet was specifically meant to protect the treasure, the small box glowing with green light on the small earthen platform. This wood puppet can speak? It must be left by the owner of the Divine Heritage Cave. This puppet is much stronger and far more mystical than the combat puppet summoned by the Holy Light Heavenly Spirit Mirror I once encountered. The puppets evoked by the mirror, they don't speak, much stiffer. After passing through the challenges of the life and death path, it seems that the treasure hunting ground was much safer, except for the little trouble encountered when taking the treasure. It's interesting that this wood puppet even warned me not to try if my strength is insufficient. Yi Chun looked at the wooden puppet covered in verdant vines with great interest. "What is your name? And what treasure are you guarding?" Yi Chun attempted to communicate with the wooden puppet, curious to see if it would respond to him. To Yi Chun's surprise, the wooden puppet could indeed converse with him directly. "Treasure hunter. You may call me Heavenly Wood Puppet. My combat strength is at the late stage of the Heavenly Saint level, specifically designated to guard a saint grade, high-quality wood element secret treasure, the Green Spirit Marrow Heart Liquid. The Green Spirit Marrow Heart Liquid is the essence extracted from the Green Spirit Sacred Tree. It is of great benefit for comprehending the wood attribute divine art and cultivating wood element skills. Heavenly Wood Puppet, Green Spirit Marrow Heart Liquid." Upon hearing that the green box contained a saint-grade, high-quality wood element secret treasure, Yi Chun's heart leaped with joy. Although it wasn't a divine artifact or a divine object, a saint-grade high-quality wood element secret treasure was still incredibly precious. Now, aside from the gold element treasures, Yi Chun had yet to find any of the other 4 types at the saint-grade high-quality level. If he obtained the Green Spirit Marrow Heart Liquid, it would provide ample support for Yi Chun to properly cultivate the wood attribute divine art, wood emperor stacking skill. What astonished Yi Chun even more was that the wooden puppet could actually reply to his questions. Heavenly Wood Puppet? Yi Chun's admiration for the master of the Divine Heritage Cave grew even stronger. Being able to create a combat puppet with late-stage Heavenly Saint combat strength was already remarkable. The fact that this combat puppet could speak was utterly extraordinary, and now that it could even answer questions, this undoubtedly indicated that the puppet had developed a trace of consciousness. To think that a puppet, an object crafted from various materials, could possess consciousness was certainly eccentric and extraordinary. As Yi-Chun marveled, Bing Shiwu, one of the 9 icebound guardians residing inside Yi-Chen's ice jade amulet, spoke up directly. Lord Yi-Chun, the combat strength of this heavenly wood puppet, although not too strong, has still reached the late stage of Heavenly Saint. My lord, allow me to strike it down and seize the green spirit marrow heart liquid for you. Lord Yi-Chun, please let me do it. Bing Shirsi, Bing Shichi, and other guardians also eagerly volunteered for combat. Yi-Chun looked at his 9 icebound guardians with a smile, shaking his head. Since entering the mid-stage of the 5 apertures rotating pill, I haven't engaged in a real battle yet. Not long ago, during my encounter with the elemental extreme divine light, I had an epiphany that greatly increased the 5 apertures rotating pills within my energy sea. I feel that, although my combat strength may not match a powerful late-stage Heavenly Saint, I should be able to hold my ground against an ordinary one. Elders, I will personally battle the Heavenly Wood Puppet this time. If I am on the verge of defeat, then you can step in and help me acquire the green spirit marrow heart liquid. Having said that, Yi-Chen's gaze turned towards the Heavenly Wood Puppet, as his fighting spirit soared visibly. Seeing Yi-Chen brimming with a desire to fight, the 9 icebound guardians exchanged a look within the ice jade amulet and smiled. Lord Yi-Chen is willing to personally engage with this late-stage Heavenly Saint-level Heavenly Wood Puppet. It seems, my lord's strength has improved further. Of course, the 9 icebound guardians weren't worried about Yi-Chen getting injured. Besides their protection, Yi-Chen had true god-level talismans on his person. Even if his combat strength fell short, and they couldn't intervene in time, Yi-Chen would remain unharmed thanks to the true god talismans. Knowing that Yi-Chen wanted to test his own true combat strength, the 9 icebound guardians naturally didn't hold him back. Boom! 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 Under the watchful eyes of the 9 icebound guardians, Yi-Chen stirred his true chi and approached the Heavenly Wood Puppet and the green spirit marrow heart liquid. In an instant, Yi-Chen had already stepped within 3 zhang of the small earthen platform. Seeing the look of intense battle intent on Yi-Chen's face, the Heavenly Wood Puppet knew that the treasure hunter intended to fight it for the treasure. Treasure hunter, it seems you won't be satisfied until I defeat you. In that case, try the power of the Heavenly Wood Puppet for yourself. Boom! As the Heavenly Wood Puppet spoke, its body immediately expanded, growing to an immense size of dozens of zhang, while its giant hand reached out through the void towards Yi-Chen, attempting to snatch him in its grasp. With the overwhelming might of a late-stage Heavenly Saint puppet, the oddly powerful Heavenly Saint space within it replenished its combat strength. As it waved its hand, the might it surged with whipped up a fierce storm in the 1,000 zhang span of the treasure chamber. As the colossal palm of the Heavenly Wood Puppet, now larger than his own body, was about to grab him, Yi-Chen instantly summoned the water attribute divine art, Heavenly Origin Divine Water. Hundreds of gloomy blue water beads appeared in front of Yi-Chen's palm, which ultimately swirled together to form a huge gloomy pearl. Enveloped by Yi-Chen's immense true chi, it was hurled forcefully towards the Heavenly Wood Puppet's hand. At the same time, Yi-Chen's figure burst forward, charging directly towards the Heavenly Wood Puppet. Yi-Chen was intent on testing whether he had the strength to face off against a late-stage Heavenly Saint-level puppet head-on. Bang! In this collision, the huge gloomy pearl, formed by Yi-Chen's activation of the water attribute divine art, Heavenly Origin Divine Water, was crushed by the Heavenly Wood Puppet's massive palm, and Yi-Chen's body was also sent flying 100 zhang away by another palm of the puppet, sent flying backward, his aura violently fluctuating with the impact. Yi-Chen's eyes nevertheless gleamed even brighter. The power of the late-stage Heavenly Saint is indeed formidable. Since that's the case, I shall unleash all my strength as well. Bang! Bang!
Bang! Bang!
Bang! All 396 five apertures rotating pills within Yi Chen's energy sea vibrated simultaneously as he halted his retreating form, suspending himself in midair. At the same time, Yi Chen slightly pinched his finger upon a magic formula, and the dazzling lights of the 5 great divine arts began to violently gather within his palms. Chapter 457. Hidden Arrow. When the 5 great divine arts approached their peak concentration, Yi Chen was completely enveloped in an unimaginably powerful aura emanating from the 5 major virtual heaven laws. This aura skyrocketed to hundreds of feet in height. As the aura surged, Yi Chen's entire body appeared more formidable than even the heavenly wood puppet, which stood dozens of feet tall. Boom! With a single step, Yi Chen caused the void to tremble. Centered on his footstep, endless waves of energy crazily surged towards him within thousands of feet in every direction in this treasure cave heaven and earth. Facing the towering heavenly wood puppet, Yi Chen, with his combat power fully unleashed, was in no way weaker in terms of aura. He was even stronger by several measures. With this step, the void trembled, and with his next movement, Yi Chen instantly shifted through the void, appearing directly in front of the heavenly wood puppet. Following that, a peerless sword light shot out instantly from the point between Yi Chen's eyebrows, carrying with it the full force of the 5 major virtual heaven laws, and wildly struck towards the heavenly wood puppet. Crimson Fire Flying Sword. This was the Crimson Fire Flying Sword that could merge with the 5 virtual heaven laws of Yi Chen's divine techniques. In this exceedingly short distance and with the full burst of Yi Chen's combat power, the heavenly wood puppet had no chance to dodge. And this sentient puppet had no intention of dodging. Very well, treasure hunter. Your realm may be low, but to possess such power, you are worthy of an all-out battle with me. If you truly manage to kill me, then you are indeed qualified to obtain the treasures left by my master. The rolling voice echoed as the green vines covering the wooden body of the heavenly wood puppet suddenly swept out like mad snakes from the heavens, stirring up the entire sky. In the stirring, a series of spiritual runes began to flicker on these green vines. Amidst the agitation of endless spiritual runes, the heavenly wood puppet's flying sword directly collided with the one sent by Yi Chen. Boom! 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 In an instant, the heavenly wood puppet collided directly with Yi Chen's flying sword. In a flash, the whole world was filled with the thunderous sound of true qi explosions. The tremendous waves of true qi spawned by the explosive sounds even submerged Yi Chen, who was controlling the flying sword, and the several dozen feet tall heavenly wood puppet. And in the next moment, amid the endless waves and the explosive sounds, Yi Chen once again clashed with the heavenly wood puppet. This was a battle of the late-phase heavenly saint level. One was Yi Chen, who had reached the mid-phase of the rotating pill realm but possessed an unprecedented 396 5 apertures rotating pills within his body and had mastered the 5 great divine arts. The other was the heavenly wood puppet, a sentient, speaking being crafted by a peerless powerhouse, a true late-phase heavenly saint-level wooden puppet. When the battle reached its peak, the figures of Yi Chen and the heavenly wood puppet could no longer be seen. All that was visible was the void being torn apart as 2 figures incessantly clashed and fought between the heavens and the earth. After dozens of moves, Yi Chen was already covered in the fresh blood of battle, and the heavenly wood puppet had dozens of its formidable vines completely severed by Yi Chen. The fight between the two, even after dozens of moves, had yet to determine a victor, as if they were locked in an evenly matched struggle. Wiping the fresh blood from the corner of his mouth, and disregarding the many other bloodstains on his body, Yi Chen, who for the first time fought with his own strength against a powerful late-stage heavenly saint, was growing more and more courageous, his eyes becoming brighter and clearer. Is this the power of a late-stage heavenly saint? I, Yi Chen, at the mid-stage rotating pill realm, can now contend with this power. With surging fighting intent, Yi Chen's 396 5 apertures rotating pills inside his body rotated even more fiercely, like swallowing and absorbing, and with a deep breath, his depleted qi was fully restored. Having recovered his qi, Yi Chen did not hesitate and once again engaged in combat with the heavenly wood puppet. The heavenly wood puppet, crafted from wooden materials, also possessed a hint of sentience and was full of disbelief at this moment. This youth is so strong, capable of getting stronger as the battle goes on, showing no signs of decline. Perhaps, my task of guarding the treasure will end at the hands of this person. If it truly ends at his hands, then I would not have guarded the treasure in vain for my master. In the end, let's fight openly. If he destroys me, I can return to the divine item left in the ice-fire divine cave by my master and be reborn anew. Seeing Yi-chan charging at him with no regard for his own safety, the heavenly wood puppet's mind raced as all the green vines on its body burst into flames, and in an instant, this wooden puppet seemingly turned into a burning firewood puppet, with a boom of flaming combustion. The astonishing firelight from the wooden puppet collided with Yi-chen's towering chi aura once again, and the two resumed their intense battle. Boom! 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 The explosions of chi in this battle were even louder than the ones before. The entire sky was completely covered by the light of Yi-chen's 5 great divine arts, further enhanced by the terrifying firelight and woodlight of the heavenly wood puppet. By the 39th explosive blast, Yi-chen was struck as though by a giant tree, sent flying hundreds of feet away, spewing a mouthful of blood, and landed on the ground. However, the heavenly wood puppet in the sky did not emerge victorious. At the moment Yi-chen was sent flying, the heavenly wood puppet's wooden body whoosh 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 simultaneously showed 8 cracks. Then, in an instant, the 8 cracks spread all over the body of the heavenly wood puppet, now dozens of feet tall, filling it with countless fissures, and the next moment, all the cracks exploded together, and the entire heavenly wood puppet burst with a loud bang, shattering into pieces. In the end, the puppet's prime wood fell from the body of the heavenly wood puppet, and all its energy dissipated into the void, disappearing between heaven and earth. The appearance of the puppet's prime wood meant that the puppet had been completely destroyed. The final battle ended with Yi-chen injured and the heavenly wood puppet exploding to death. Upon witnessing such a tragic scene, the 9 ice snow jade pendant guardians called out in concern, "Lord Yi-chan, are you all right?" "I'm fine," replied Yi-chan with a light chuckle, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. Just as Yi-chan smiled at the 9 ice snow jade pendant guardians and was about to get up and walk towards the small earthen platform, ready to lay his hands on the treasure green spirit marrow heart liquid of this treasure cave heaven and earth, suddenly, 2 earth-shattering whooshing sounds directly targeted and shot towards him. These 2 earth-shattering sounds were none other than chi auras of late-stage heavenly saint combat power. Yi-chen's face changed in an instant. Were there others hidden in this treasure cave space? Had they launched an attack on him in the very moment he let down his guard, just after the fierce battle with the heavenly wood puppet when he was injured? And there were 2 chi auras of late-stage heavenly saint combat power. What was even more eerie was that not only had he failed to detect the presence of other people here, but even the 9 ice snow jade pendant guardians had not noticed any anomaly in this place. As the 2 combat power chi auras approached Yi-chan in an instant, he snorted coldly and immediately his life-bound flying sword Crimson Fire turned into a terrifying fiery red sword light, engulfing the 2 chi auras within the flames, and promptly eradicated them. Yi-chan then turned towards the direction from where the chi auras had been shot and said coldly, "Who is it? Attacking from the shadows? Show yourself." Chapter 458 Destruction Eye Skills. In the cold voice of Yi-chan, 2 figures flashed through the void, revealing themselves right at the entrance of the treasure cave space. Not bad, at such a young age, to endure an injury from a battle with a late-stage heavenly saint puppet, and then to even dodge our killing move, truly a person who is rumored to be unafraid even of Ao Lei, the son of the leader of the Myriad Beasts Alliance. These 2 figures, speaking up, were one exceedingly plump, and the other remarkably thin. The same 2 late-stage heavenly saints who had tracked Yi-chan all the way here using the netherworld mirror. "It's you too." Yi-chan recognized them. He remembered that among the 9 who had entered the Divine Heritage Cave at the Divine Transmission Hall, these 2, the fat and thin saints, were present. Due to their starkly contrasting physiques, Yi-chan had an extremely clear memory of them. Yi-chun also hadn't expected that those who had shot the dark arrow to kill him would be these two. If I'm not mistaken, your name is Yi-chun. As Yi-chun was sizing up the two heavenly saints who had made attempts on his life, the plump heavenly saint turned his piercing gaze toward Yi-chun and said, Yi-chun, just hand over the 9 Suns spirit ginseng that's 10,000 years old. Considering we have braved the divine heritage cave together, we too will leave you a whole corpse. At the mention of 9 Suns spirit ginseng, Yi-chun was startled. How did these two know he had obtained the 9 Suns spirit ginseng, and that it was 10,000 years old? From the words of the plump heavenly saint, it was clear they had attempted a stealthy assassination precisely for that piece of spirit ginseng. And clearly, by revealing themselves now, they intended to kill for treasure and snatch away the most precious 10,000-year-old 9 Suns spirit ginseng from his hands. What surprised Yi-chun even more was that he could sense these two individuals were not even as powerful as Bing Shire. How could they have remained unnoticed by the 9 guard protectors, let alone by the much stronger Bing Shi? A 10,000-year-old 9 Suns spirit ginseng? Although surprised, Yi-chun didn't see these two as a threat. Even though it had been no easy feat to win the battle against the heavenly wood puppet, that was just his own body's strength. When it came to a real life-and-death combat, Yi-chun had much more than that. He had the 9 guard protectors and 2 true god talismans. With all his means at his disposal, back at the second mountain, Yi-chun had even managed to fight against the 3-eyed skeleton with the combat power of a 3 tribulations true god. These 2 late-stage heavenly saints, Yi-chun had no reason to fear. Yi-chun didn't deny having attained the 9 Suns spirit ginseng. That's right, I do have the spirit ginseng on me, but do you really think just the 2 of you can make me hand it over and kill me? Are you dreaming? Ha ha! Hearing Yi-chun's words, the plump heavenly saint burst into loud laughter. We saw your fight with that puppet just now, and indeed, at such a young age, being able to battle against a late-stage heavenly saint-level powerhouse is already commendable. But you must know, not all late-stage heavenly saints are created equal. You might have killed that puppet, but surviving even 2 moves from us is impossible. 1 move, and we could kill you. The reason the plump heavenly saint and his gaunt counterpart had not acted earlier was to gauge Yi-chun's hidden strength. Having seen Yi-chun's full outburst, although he managed to kill the puppet, he was also seriously injured. They judged that Yi-chun's strength had barely reached the ordinary level of a late-stage heavenly saint, nowhere near the formidable combat power of that tier. Such strength was no threat to them. Let alone having 2 of them, even if any one of them were to act alone, they could easily handle Yi-chun. They had plenty of treasures, and even if this young man had 1 or 2 last-resort techniques he hadn't used yet, they were not afraid at all. They revealed themselves because they had absolute confidence in overcoming Yi-chun. Seeing the certainty with which the plump heavenly saint spoke, Yi-chun smiled lightly. Not even 2 moves? Bing Shi, Bing Shire, what do you 2 seniors think? Are these guys dreaming? Amid Yi-chun's light laughter, 2 stunning figures flew out from the ice-snow jade pendant on his body, instantly transforming into gigantic war beast forms, standing in front of Yi-chun. Both war beasts spoke to Yi-chun. Lord Yi-chun, indeed, they are dreaming. One was Bing Shi, a snow-white rock with 1,000 zhang body length, and the other was Bing Shire, a humanoid giant beast with a body length of over 800 zhang. The appearance of the 2 war beasts stunned the plump and the extremely thin heavenly saints, completely dumbfounded. No matter what, the 2 heavenly saints had never expected Yi-chun to have such formidable war beasts with him, and that these beasts exuded a stronger aura than their own. When they had first heard the rumors about Yi-chun, they only knew that he had 2 rather powerful late-stage heavenly saint seniors by his side, but according to those rumors, the combat power of those 2 seniors was nowhere near theirs. How had it suddenly changed to 2 even more formidable late-stage heavenly saint war beasts now? Just how many late-stage heavenly saint seniors did Yi-chun have with him? Furthermore, late-stage heavenly saints, whether humans or war beasts, couldn't bring anything into the divine heritage cave without the treasure cave key. How did Yi-chun manage to bring these war beasts here? The corpulent heavenly saint and the exceptionally skinny heavenly saint were filled with utter astonishment. The two of them hadn't encountered Yi Chun at all in the first few mountains of the Five Elements Mountain, and even after entering the treasure cave in the fourth mountain, they were separated from Yi Chun during the teleportation. They had no idea about Yi Chun's true capabilities. It was precisely because they thought Yi Chun couldn't have any helpers that they were confident they could deal with him. They couldn't possibly imagine that Yi Chun possessed an upper-tier divine artifact, the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, which allowed him to bring all 9 of the Icebound Guardians into the Divine Heritage Cave. Seeing the astonished looks of these 2 heavenly saints, Yi Chun didn't care about them. In the Divine Heritage Cave, on the path of 3 life and death trials and 3 treasure zones, Yi Chun had learned from the 3-eyed skeleton upon entry that many treasure hunters would even kill others for treasures. Unexpectedly, Yi Chun now found himself facing such individuals in the 2nd treasure zone. These 2 individuals had attempted to kill without any hesitation, which clearly showed their malicious intent. Now that Yi Chun had summoned his seniors Bing Shi and Bing Shire, of course, he wouldn't let these 2 off the hook. As for how these 2 managed to evade the investigation of the 9 Icebound Guardians and knew about his acquisition of the 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng, once they were killed, a soul search of their divine souls would reveal everything. With that thought, Yi Chun directly addressed Bing Shi and Bing Shire. Seniors, kill these 2. After soul searching their divine souls, extinguish their souls as well. It was indeed true that these 2 heavenly saints were much more powerful than Yi Chun, so he wouldn't take them on himself as he had with the heavenly wood puppet. After all, these were individuals plotting against him, not mere puppets guarding treasures. Yi Chun certainly had no time to waste with such people. Upon hearing Yi Chun's instruction to have the 2 war beasts kill them, the corpulent and skinny heavenly saints looked shocked. At that moment, Bing Shi and Bing Shire bowed to Yi Chun and responded, "Yes, Lord Yi Chun." Subsequently, Bing Shi and Bing Shire unleashed their formidable power and charged towards the corpulent and skinny heavenly saints. Bing Shire's combat strength was already superior to that of the 2 men, and Bing Shi was even more fearsome than Bing Shire. With both Icebound Guardians striking together, the corpulent and skinny heavenly saints couldn't withstand them at all. When Yi Chun saw Bing Shire kill the corpulent heavenly saint with 1 move, before he had the chance to use his techniques and artifacts, Yi Chun also speculated that Bing Shi could kill the exceptionally skinny heavenly saint in 1 move. What surprised Yi Chun, though, was that the exceptionally skinny heavenly saint instantly produced an ancient bronze mirror. The mirror's light rippled, momentarily halting the fabric of space, while the heavenly saint's eyes emitted 2 piercing gray beams of light, directly targeting Bing Shi. The slightly hindered Bing Shi naturally wouldn't fall behind in the hands of such a heavenly saint and merely took an extra move to break through this late-stage heavenly saint's space halt technique. With another move, Bing Shi instantly killed the exceptionally skinny heavenly saint on the spot. In the end, the 2 Icebound Guardians pinched their hands, capturing the divine souls of the corpulent and skinny heavenly saints, which were about to disperse, and handed them to Yi Chun. That bronze mirror artifact just now? And those peculiar eyes? Were it these 2 moves that managed to momentarily halt even Senior Bing Shi? Could it be that these 2 items are related to their ability to discover I obtained the 9 Suns Spirit Ginseng and to conceal their tracks from us? Yi Chun's gaze turned to the ancient bronze mirror that had fallen to the ground after Bing Shi had killed the exceptionally skinny heavenly saint. He also reconsidered the eye attack that the heavenly saint had used at the last moment, and his heart stirred. He pinched the dissipating divine souls of the 2 slain heavenly saints in his hands and activated the soul-searching secret skills, sweeping towards the 2 souls. Moments later, as the 2 divine souls completely vanished, Yi Chun lifted his head once again. Yi Chun's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Yi Chun murmured, "Destruction eye skills? Netherworld mirror?" These 2 heavenly saints actually possessed such peculiar items. As he muttered to himself, Yi Chun grasped the ancient bronze mirror that had fallen to the ground, and 2 storage rings flew towards him from the 2 slain heavenly saints. Yi Chun caught the ancient bronze mirror with his left hand and reached into one of the storage rings with his right. An ancient manual inscribed with "Destruction Eye Skills" appeared in Yi Chun's right hand. Chapter 459 Inventory. Yi Chen's gaze first fell upon the archaic scripture of destruction eye skills. According to the divine soul memories of the two heavenly saints, they obtained this secret scripture of destruction eye skills from a treasure cave located somewhere in the second treasure site during their last venture into the divine heritage cave. And it is an extremely powerful set of divine arts for the divine soul. This set of divine arts possesses two great divine mights, destruction and extinction. The divine might of destruction allows one to see through many hidden things. It was with the aid of this divine might of destruction that the two heavenly saints successfully evaded the shooting of the primordial divine light in the second stage of the path of life and death. What's more, by utilizing this divine might of destruction, they were able to investigate the situation of the 10-9 Sun spirit ginsengs protected by a prohibition light barrier. Hence they discovered that the most precious 10,000-year-old 9 Sun spirit ginseng had been taken away. Reading about the divine might of destruction from the divine soul memories of the obese and skinny saints, Yi Chen was also filled with amazement. As for the divine might of extinction, it's an even more powerful offensive technique that can directly attack an opponent's divine soul. It was precisely by employing this technique that the extremely thin heavenly saint was able to momentarily hold back Bing Shi, who was far more powerful than him. Although it was but a moment, in a battle of equal strength, that could directly determine the outcome of life and death. The more Yi Chen learned about the destruction eye skills, the more precious he found this set of divine arts to be. Now that the obese and skinny saints were dead, this set of divine arts was in his hands, belonging to him. Divine arts are powerful, and of course Yi Chen was overjoyed, which meant that he too could cultivate the divine mights of this set of divine arts. With this set of divine arts, once I've learned it, I'll have yet another powerful technique. If I had known this set of divine arts earlier, those two hiding on the side wouldn't have been able to deceive me, and I would have directly discovered them. Even more, if I had this set of divine arts earlier, during the second stage of the path of life and death, I could have directly passed through without relying on the ice snow jade pendant. The two great divine mights, destruction and extinction, of this set of divine arts, will surely be used in many places in the future. After understanding this ancient scripture of destruction divine skills, Yi Chen carefully stored it away. Divine arts cultivation is not achieved overnight. Mastering this practice will still require much time and effort. Now, as he was venturing into the divine heritage cave, time was precious, so there was no opportunity for dedicated cultivation. Yi Chen decided that as soon as he found an appropriate time, he would thoroughly delve into this set of divine arts. Next, Yi Chen turned his attention to the ancient bronze mirror, a magical treasure in his left hand. Looking at this ancient treasure mirror, Yi Chen's eyes were even more shocked than when he saw the destruction eye skills. Tongming Mirror, a lower-grade divine artifact for assistance, an exceedingly famous type of auxiliary divine artifact. This item is a rare object that the extremely thin heavenly saint chanced upon while venturing in the upper realm's minor spirit world. This auxiliary divine artifact involves both spatial and temporal laws. This mirror can reflect events that occurred within a certain space half an hour earlier, possessing the divine function of observing past time. It was by relying on this divine might that the recently deceased obese and skinny saints knew about the 9 Sun spirit ginseng I acquired ahead of them and discovered that I had obtained the most precious 10,000-year-old 9 Sun spirit ginseng. Previously, Yi Chen could not figure out how the obese and skinny saints knew about the 10,000-year-old 9 Sun spirit ginseng in his possession. Now, knowing the divine might of the Tongming Mirror, Yi Chen finally understood the truth of the matter. If it was only capable of showing events from half an hour earlier, it wouldn't be too powerful. But what's even more formidable is that this mirror directly has a tracking divine might, which can trace the movements of the people observed within the mirror. I was wondering how they found me, but it turned out that it was this mirror that revealed my treasure-hunting route to them, leading them here in the end. Moreover, by employing the Tongming Mirror's third function, concealment, they evaded my detection and that of the 9 great ice sentinels. Now Yi Chen also knew how the obese and skinny saints had managed to conceal themselves undetected previously. It turned out that it was also by relying on this Tongming mirror. Investigation of the past. Tracing movements. Concealing one's body. The three amazing effects of the Tongming mirror left Yi Chun astounded. An auxiliary-class divine artifact. This was the first time Yi Chun had encountered such a divine artifact, truly marvelous, and greatly beneficial to martial artists. What made Yi Chun even more excited was that now this treasure had fallen into his hands. Unlike the Destruction Eye skills divine arts that require cultivation for use, after the extremely thin Heavenly Saint was executed later, this divine artifact became unowned, and he could utilize it directly after a simple act of acknowledgement and refinement. This meant that Yi Chun could immediately make use of this divine artifact. There was still the third segment of the path of life and death to traverse in the Divine Heritage Cave, and Yi Chun, with the great divine power of the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, already had the confidence to get through the third stage. Now, if he could refine the Tongming mirror and possess its concealment and investigation functions, Yi Chun's chances of navigating the third stage would be even greater. The first two stages of the path of life and death were incredibly perilous, but the treasure hunting in the later areas made Yi Chun linger with attachment, and he naturally did not want to miss the even more precious third treasure site. With this in mind, Yi Chun did not hesitate and immediately sat down cross-legged and began to refine this newly obtained auxiliary divine artifact, the Tongming mirror. Whoosh! With a flip of his palm, Yi Chun sent the ancient mirror flying into the void, where it hovered in the air directly in front of him. Then, Yi Chun pinched a secret technique with his hand, and 3 drops of essence blood, along with a thread of divine thought, flew into the ancient mirror, beginning the process of acknowledgement and refinement of the treasure. About 2 hours later, Yi Chun, who had been sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly vanished without trace, his presence no longer detectable within the entire treasure cave space. The very next moment, when Yi Chun reappeared, the ancient mirror treasure lay quietly in the palm of his hand. The hidden divine might is indeed wondrous. With such concealment, probably only virtual heavenly true gods could see through my tracks. If one in the heavenly saint realm lacks a magical treasure that can break concealment, even those at the late stages of heavenly saint would absolutely fail to detect me. After refining and acknowledging the Tongming mirror as his, Yi Chun tested the mirror's hidden divine might and nodded in satisfaction. Unfortunately, this item is a lower-grade divine artifact and has one flaw. Each activation can only be used for an hour, and after that time has elapsed, the artifact will enter a dormant state, only to be used again after a day. It seems that the chance to use this artifact for an hour each day must be reserved for critical moments. After flipping the ancient bronze-colored Tongming mirror over in his hand a couple of times, Yi Chun put it into the Ice Snow Jade Pendant. Next, Yi Chun began to examine the other contents of the storage rings belonging to the fat and thin saints who had perished. Inside the 2 storage rings, Yi Chun found an abundance of top-grade spirit stones as well as some treasures of little use to him. Only 2 items caught his attention and made him linger. One of these items was named the Heavenly Thunder Pearl, a one-time use magical treasure that the obese Heavenly Saint had found in the first treasure site of the Divine Heritage Cave. The Heavenly Thunder Pearl was crafted by a great divine practitioner using 9 heavens true thunder. In Yi Chun's possession, the box contained 9 heavenly thunder pearls. According to the instructions with the treasure, if all 9 pearls were unleashed at once, they could even severely injure a first tribulation true god and kill a peak late-stage heavenly saint. Seeing this, Yi Chun drew in a sharp breath. Fortunately, Bing Shire had acted promptly, killing the obese heavenly saint before he had a chance to use this treasure. Otherwise, even the immensely powerful Bing Shire might have been gravely wounded or killed. Unless Yi Chun noticed something amiss and used the Ice Snow Jade Pendant to protect Bing Shire, it would have been possible to save him. It seems I need to be even more cautious in the future. Every martial artist has many hidden cards, and any one of them could kill me. I must be careful. Yi Chun reflected on his experiences. The fat and thin duo perished because they had underestimated him. Naturally, Yi Chun did not wish to make the same mistake and fall at the hands of another martial artist. It said, "Even when a lion fights a rabbit, It uses all its strength. When it comes to life and death, there's no room for carelessness. One must act with full force and be thoroughly prepared. Yi-chun reminded himself, then turned his attention to the second item he had taken out from the storage ring. This second item was a small blue bottle containing approximately 20 drops of spiritual fluid. The primordial extreme spiritual fluid, which can rapidly restore vital energy, seems to even be connected to the primordial divine light from the second stage of the path of life and death. According to the description, this spiritual fluid is nurtured from the site where primordial divine light is born. A single drop can directly restore the expended vital energy of a late-stage heavenly saint. These 20-odd drops of primordial extreme spiritual fluid could be very useful in prolonged battles. After inventorying all the treasures, Yi-chun packed them away and stood up from his cross-legged position. He then collected the puppet wood that had dropped from the heavenly wood puppet after it was destroyed into the ice snow jade pendant. This puppet wood was a wondrous wooden treasure for crafting puppets, and since the heavenly wood puppet was of late-stage heavenly saint level, the wood was, of course, exceedingly precious. Although Yi-chun did not know how to craft puppets, naturally, he wouldn't leave the wood behind. Finally, Yi-chun walked over to the small earthen platform in this treasure cave space and took the green box containing the high-grade wood-type secret treasure, Green Spirit Marrow Heart Liquid, into his hands. Upon opening the green box, Yi-chun saw 5 drops of emerald green, extraordinary liquid flowing inside. With just a light sniff of these 5 drops, the wood-type divine pill law pattern on the 396 5 apertures rotating pills within his chi-si all leapt for joy. The second treasure site, the first treasure I've discovered on my own, Green Spirit Marrow Heart Liquid. I never expected that while obtaining this treasure, I would inadvertently come to possess so many good things like the Tong Ming Mirror, Destruction Eye Skills, Heavenly Thunder Pearl, and Primordial Extreme Spiritual Fluid. With a soft smile, Yi-chun closed the green box and tucked it away. Since arriving at the 5 Elements Mountain, his gains from just a few months of adventuring were immense. In the first mountain, he vanquished Aole and obtained the Treasure Cave Key and Purple Mist True Garment. In the second mountain, he encountered the 3-eyed skeleton and acquired the Virtual Heaven 5 Extreme Fruit. In the third mountain, he smoothly advanced to the mid-stage of Rotating Pill, and now, having just entered the 4th mountain's Divine Heritage Cave 5 days ago, he had already found many treasures. In the Divine Heritage Cave, there are 10 more days of exploration, and there's still over half a day left to search in the second treasure site. With the remaining time, I can take a look at the 3rd segment of the Path of Life and Death and the 3rd treasure site. After that, I can leave the mountain and prepare to return to the Savage Continent. With this in mind, Yi-chun's thoughts turned to Zhang Yao, who was far away in the Heavenly Saint Palace on the Savage Continent. Having not seen her for several months, Yi-chun wondered how Zhang Yao was faring now. Chapter 460 Death Illusionary Realm. While Yi-chun, far away in the second treasure site of the Divine Heritage Cave, within the 5 Elements Mountain, longed for Zhang Yao. In the barbaric wilderness continent, at the Heavenly Sacred Palace, within the deepest secret lake sanctuary of Heavenly Saint Mountain, Zhang Yao, wearing a simple and elegant white dress, was sitting by the lake, her star-like radiant and bright eyes gazing into the distance. "Princess Yao, you're missing Yi-chun again," a voice said. Hundreds of yards away from the girl, on a flat boat in the lake, the True Phoenix and Mulan True God, both transformed into human form, were seated in the boat, looking toward Zhang Yao on the lake shore and smiling lightly as they spoke. "It's been 3 months since Yi-chun left. Princess Yao has also been practicing in the Divine Phoenix space with us for 3 months. Every month when she comes out of the Divine Phoenix space, she spends a whole day by herself. Now the only person Princess Yao is closest to is Yi-chun, and she really misses him. Yes, speaking of which, the adventure in the 5 Elements Mountain is about to end. I wonder how Yi-chun's findings will turn out this time. Princess Yao has achieved great success this time with the 3 months of accelerated time in the Divine Phoenix space," Mulan True God said, sentimentally. True Phoenix also smiled gently. "This young man Yi-chun does not have the bloodline of the ancient clans from the upper realm. With his own effort, he has achieved such feats. He's someone with great will, persistence, and fortune. His gains from this adventure in the Five Elements Mountain will certainly not be small. Mulan True God nodded. Indeed, I do hope Yi-chan can continue this miraculous journey. Princess Yao's father and mother are still in the hands of the Divine King, and the Vermilion Bird Clan and Flying Spirit Clan, the enemies of the Divine Phoenix Clan, are also still in the upper realm. Yi-chan would definitely not want the princess to face these alone. Only if he is strong enough can he stand before her and be her true support. True Phoenix's eyes shimmered with light, fixated on the distant sky, just like Zhang Yao's. I believe that Yi-chan will indeed become a true and powerful support for the princess. The words of Mulan True God and True Phoenix could not reach Yi-chan, separated by countless spaces. But Yi-chan, who was far away in the Divine Heritage Cave, knew that just as he cared for Zhang Yao, she, in the barbaric wilderness continent, must be missing him as well. Thinking of the girl's beautiful face, her clear eyes, and the warm small hands that always tightly gripped his own when they met, Yi-chan felt a wave of warmth in his heart. The fatigue from braving the Divine Heritage Cave seemed to vanish at the thought. Let's move on. For my own strength, and for Zhang Yao, for my people, and for Zhang Yao's people, I need to become even stronger. Mid-stage spin elixir realm, late-stage heavenly saint battle power? That's still far from enough. There are more powerful true gods, divine kings, and even the great divine sovereigns still ahead. Yi-chan, filled with strength, snapped out of his reverie of Zhang Yao and reviewed his items, and his gaze towards the second treasure site became even more resolute. There's still half a day left to hunt for treasure in this second site. After one more search, I can tackle the final path of life and death, the last treasure site. The fat and thin twin saints have already died by my hand, and Ding Xiaojia is preparing to be teleported out. I wonder how the others are doing now. Huameyer, the three-eyed skeleton, as well as Saint Erjin Liang from the Shenjin continent. It's very likely that some of them have already made it to the third section of the path of life and death, or even into the third treasure site. I must hurry as well. With these thoughts, Yi-chan's figure moved, and he flew out of the treasure cave space where the green spirit marrow heart liquid was hidden, flying toward other parts of the second treasure site, continuing his treasure hunt. After half a day, having found 2 more treasures, Yi-chan was directly transported by the treasure cave key to the checkpoint of the third section of the path of life and death. The third section of the path of life and death is the last and most dangerous checkpoint of the Divine Heritage Cave. After passing through this checkpoint, one can directly enter the last treasure site of the Divine Heritage Cave. When Yi-chan was transported to the third section of the path of life and death, he found that what appeared before him this time was neither the golden, glittering desert of death from the first section, nor the vast brown expanse hiding the light of death, primordial divine light from the second section. This time, Yi-chan was unexpectedly teleported directly into an extremely dark and narrow passage. This pitch-black passage stretched on endlessly ahead, as if there were no end in sight. If many unprepared treasure hunters were suddenly transported to such a place, especially being the final section of the path of life and death, where even with psychic detection one couldn't see clearly through the dark passage, it is likely that many treasure hunters would be completely startled without even starting the challenge. But now, standing in the dark passage, Yi-chan's eyes were becoming increasingly bright. The third section of the path of life and death, it really is the Death Illusionary Realm checkpoint. The form of the checkpoint hasn't changed, but this time, every part of the Divine Heritage Cave has become much more dangerous than before. I'm afraid this Death Illusionary Realm will pose countless times more danger. The first time Yi-chan came to this third section of the path of life and death, he seemed to have an incomparable understanding of this place. This was thanks to the fat and thin twin saints who were previously killed by the Ice 11 and Ice 12. These 2 heavenly saints had previously challenged the Divine Heritage Cave several times, and through their divine soul memories, combined with his own experiences from the previous 2 sections of the path of life and death, Yi-chan had become extremely familiar with the third section. In the memory of the fat and thin twin saints, the first section of the path of life and death was the Desert of Death checkpoint, the second was the Light of Death checkpoint, and the third was the Death Illusionary Realm checkpoint. In the Desert of Death checkpoint, there used to be 3 rounds of monster attacks. This time it turned into 9 rounds, and even the monsters themselves became a lot more formidable. The Light of Death checkpoint, this time, evolved from the Purple Orchid Holy Light, which could kill many late-stage heavenly saints, to the Primordial Divine Light, that even low-grade divine artifacts couldn't withstand, and could even kill lower-ranking true gods. In the memory of the Fat and Thin Twin Saints, the Death Illusionary Realm checkpoint used to encounter 3 phases of illusions that could affect and even strangle the divine soul. Now, having gone through the increased danger of the first 2 sections of the Path of Life and Death, Yi-Chen already knew that the upcoming Death Illusionary Realm would likely have far more than 3 stages of illusions, and the lethality of the illusions would also increase many times over. I wonder how many stages of illusion my divine soul can withstand. Yi-Chen's gaze drifted towards the pitch-black passage ahead. If it can't withstand them, I'll have to rely on the Ice Snow Jade Pendant. The Ice Snow Jade Pendant, a high-grade divine artifact, unlike the Purple Mist True Garment, a lower-grade divine artifact that could only defend against attacks at the level of True Qi. The Ice Snow Jade Pendant could even defend against attacks targeting the divine soul. It was for this reason that Yi-Chen felt more confident in tackling this final challenge after realizing the 3rd section of the Path of Life and Death was the Death Illusionary Realm. Clutching the Ice Snow Jade Pendant in his hand, Yi-Chen took a deep breath and strode forward into the pitch-black passage. After traversing about several hundred yards, Yi-Chen felt the dark passage vanish, and he was instantly transported to a vast plain. The plain seemed incredibly real, hardly resembling an illusion. If Yi-Chen had come to this plain for the first time, he might have thought he had entered into another space. But now, looking at the plain, Yi-Chen's expression did not change in the slightest, knowing in his heart that he was still within that dark passage, and this plain was nothing more than an illusionary realm, because this illusion Yi-Chen had once seen in the memory of the Fat and Thin Twin Saints was precisely a trial of psychological fear. Boom! 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 As Yi-Chen surveyed the vast plain illusion, a thunderous roar came from the end of the plain. Then, countless terrifying monsters surged over the horizon like a tide. Yi-Chen saw that there must have been over 10,000 of them, each with an aura reaching the late stages of heavenly saints. The horde of monsters rushed out from the end of the plain, overwhelming Yi-Chen in a frenzied flood, and in a moment, they were tens of yards away from him. Yi-Chen could clearly see the bloodthirsty fangs of these monsters, hear their low roars, and even the putrid stench emanating from their bodies was now unmistakably discernible to him.